Chapter 151. To the Empire 1. I presume that the bastards of the Empire think that I am really annoying. Why was the Crown Prince suddenly criticizing himself? Cal quietly waited for the Crown Prince to continue to speak. It was because the Crown Prince looked extremely happy. I've never seen him looking like this. Cal suddenly started to feel iffy. I was the Crown Prince who sought justice for my kingdom as I sought out the organization responsible for the magic bomb incident in our own kingdom. Cal's expression became even worse. On the other hand, Crown Prince Alberu's expression became even brighter, as if he was very happy. I looked like a crown prince who had set his goal toward getting rid of those damn bastards from the Western continent, rather than paying attention to what was going on. I had shown sympathy to the Empire for having suffered a similar incident and had urged them to work together to find the culprits. Cal started to speak. The Empire probably had a major headache. Yes, I enjoyed it. Alberu was smiling brightly in front of Cal for the first time in a long time. Cal avoided his gaze and started to think that the Empire was put in an awkward position. The Roan Kingdom. It was a so-so kingdom that was neither strong nor weak. However, it was a kingdom with a long history on the Western continent. If the Crown Prince of that kingdom becomes filled with justice and causes a scene, the Empire would not be able to ignore him. However, they also could not scream justice with him, since they are accomplices. Neither Cal nor Alberu could confirm whether the Magoru Empire was in cahoots with the secret organization ARM and their magic bomb terror incident on the Roan Kingdom. However, the Empire was definitely involved with the secret organization's attack on the Church of the Sun God, and they had also tried to kill the Saint and the Holy Maiden. That was why they would want to push aside the terror incidents as quietly as possible. So this Crown Prince who continued to bring it up would be extremely annoying to them. However, Alberu was acting like that in order to hide their alliance with the other kingdoms. But what does that have to do with doing something big? As I was acting like that. Cal shook his head at Alberu's words. Acting? Your Highness has always been such a person. You are just and pure. Enough with the nonsense. Alberu started to frown, so Cal shut up. Alberu started to speak to the person who was even worse than him. Anyways, I asked day and night for an investigation of the bombing location. An investigation? Yes. I said I wanted to find even the smallest clue and said that I wanted to look around the Church of the Sun God's Vatican and the plaza in front of it. When I continued to ask, even when they were at war, did the Empire not get angry? I jabbed at them slowly. Cal did not believe him at all. Cal held back his scoff and asked, Your Highness, based on the fact that you have contacted me, I'm guessing that the Empire agreed to your investigation. It has already been a year since the incident. They seem to have agreed while thinking that I will not manage to find anything. Alberu tapped on the table and continued to speak. Wouldn't it be great to observe some alchemy while we are looking around? No, it was not great at all. He had been having a bad feeling ever since his back started getting itchy. Isn't the Empire in a bad mood because they lost a castle to the Whipper Kingdom? They are. That is why I think they are trying to change the focus of the citizens, by talking about how they are cooperating with us to investigate the terror incident. Alberu looked right at Cal as he continued to speak. The Empire probably took everything of value in the name of investigating. Right. I suppose so. Are the Saint and Holy Maiden well? They are. Cal suddenly had a thought and stopped responding. He then started to smile. Your Highness. Yes, Alberu looked at Cal, who no longer seemed frustrated, and urged him to continue. Are you thinking that there may be some hidden treasure at the church? You don't think so? Absolutely not. Cal was almost certain that there would be something. This was his intuition as someone who has read fantasy novels for many years. The Church of the Sun God had survived as the official religion of the Empire for hundreds of years. They were bound to have hidden some of their precious treasures somewhere. The Empire had yet to destroy the buildings of the church that were not affected by the bombing incident. Rayon, who had been quietly listening in the corner, started to speak in Cal's mind. Human? Are we treasure hunting? I'm very good at treasure hunting. Cal started to smile even more. Even if the saint was kind of clueless, and the Holy Maiden had negative feelings about the church, Wouldn't they at least know about any secret compartments? Cal could hear Alberu's voice as he organized the thoughts in his head. 5 to 5. I'll take the 5. Cal's gaze headed toward Alberu. I'm being very generous. You are not going to turn the treasure over to the palace? I'll turn it over and get some money. My personal finances are lacking after paying for all those potions. Rayon's voice echoed in Cal's mind once again. Human, you and the Crown Prince are smiling the same way. You're even laughing like that again. Cal sat up straight and asked the Crown Prince a question. When is it? December. They said that we should come to celebrate the end of the year with them. I guess they want to show off their wealth. Wealth? Isn't the Empire currently hiding their strength? The Empire had hidden their core strength, including alchemy, even in their war with Tunka. It was not even funny. Anyway, we are heading to the Empire at the beginning of December. It was currently mid-November and the beginning of winter. Cal prepared to turn the video communication device off and said his goodbyes to Alberu. I will see you at the capital, Your Highness. As expected, Alberu hung up as soon as he heard Cal's response. This Crown Prince never seemed to change. Cal moved faster than the others with Rayon and Choi Han with him. He was currently meeting with his father in his office in the Hennetus castle. He had not been here in a while. Father. Yes. Count Daruth could not stop smiling after seeing his son for the first time in a long time. The Count believed that Cal had been living like a hermit at the villa in Harris Village until he traveled to another kingdom to do the Crown Prince's bidding. You see, I speak at ease. There was a reason Cal came back here before the others. I plan to bring some people I know to our territory. People I know. He was naturally talking about the tiger tribe. It would be difficult and annoying to hide them because of their number and size. Count Daruth saw the seriousness in his son's face and started to speak. How many people? Approximately 20. They are poor and pitiful people who lost their home. Are they a family? Yes, sir. Count Daruth started to think, early winter, people wandering around without a home. He was sure that these people were wandering without having been able to harvest anything in the fall. There are some adults, as well as children and the elderly. Count Daruth's frown became deeper after hearing Cal's words. He was thinking about how these pitiful people were shivering while looking for a new home. Count Daruth took a sip of tea to calm himself. He looked toward his son Cal after the tea warmed him up a bit. He understood why his son would want to bring them here. His son really was a big-hearted man. Cal observed Daruth's response and said in the most pitiful tone as possible, Father, that is why I hope to let them immigrate to Harris Village. Will that be okay? It was the Lord of the Territory's decision whether new residents could move into the territory. Cal was being cautious because he was not bringing just a few guests. Instead, he was giving them a residence in their territory. But I'm sure he will allow it. He thought that Daruth would not object based on his personality. The Count slowly started to speak. That is a bit difficult. Cal flinched. Excuse me? He did not expect Daruth to say no. He did not expect it at all. Count Daruth continued to speak at that moment. Harris Village is the most northern part of our territory. The Northern Alliance is expected to head down in the spring. Count Daruth considered himself to be a selfish person, however. He still showed warmth to the people in his territory. That is why I plan to move the current residents of the North prior to the spring as well. We can't leave the residents in a dangerous location. Clack. Daruth put down his teacup on the table and continued to speak. Bring those people to the castle. I will give them a place to stay. Cal observed Count Daruth without being able to say anything. The Count started to speak again after seeing Cal's condition. You do not need to worry about anything else. Our territory has a lot of mines and is developed in the arts, so we have never been wary of foreigners. The castle has also gotten bigger since we reinforced the castle walls. I can even help them with their monetary needs. Father. Cal cautiously cut off Count Daruth, who sounded like he would continue to speak, and responded back. They are the Tiger Tribe. They are Tiger Tribe beast people. Count Daruth looked toward his son while wondering why he was suddenly talking about the Tiger Tribe. Father, the people I am bringing are from the Tiger Tribe. Cal generously explained to Count Daruth, who seemed to be confused. They are very strong. They are a great addition as we prepare for war. I am thinking of bringing them over because they are wandering without a home. Count Daruth started speaking after a long time. You did well. Yes, sir. Cal happily accepted the Count's praise. Father, the restoration of Harris Village is completed, but we do not have any residents living there. The Tiger tribe wants to be around a forest as well. I think it would be great if we gave them the village as a new home. You're right, you're right. The Count nodded his head multiple times as he answered. There was a different kind of smile on his face now. Rayon, who was watching the father-son duo chat while remaining invisible, started to speak into Cal's mind. Human, the Count is smiling like you do when you are scamming people. It is amazing. It is very similar. 3Cal paid no attention to Rayon's words and acted as if they were background music. The Count gave his son an order as the lord of the territory. I will leave that to you. Yes, sir. Cal chatted with the Count about some other things as well before getting up. Count Daruth started to speak again as Cal headed for the door. Show your face every so often, even if you are busy. Your mother and siblings are waiting for you. I understand. I will try to spend the beginning of the year here. Good. Cal walked out of the office, Kim Rock-Soo, who had become Cal. As someone who did not have any blood relatives for a long time, these conversations always made him feel a bit awkward. However, he did not have time to continue to feel this type of awkwardness. Cal visited the tea shop in the city for the first time in a while. It was the tea shop run by the Flynn Merchant Guild's Billows. A worker had been running it ever since Billows left for the capital, but it still remained in the same location, and today the owner had returned to the shop for the first time in a while. Long time no see. Have you been well, young Master Nim? Billows's piggy bank-like face was full of joy. He was currently using the magic devices Cal had handed to him, as well as the benefits he got from the Whipper Kingdom's civil war, to increase his influence in the Flynn Merchant Guild. So. I didn't expect you to come right away after I contacted you. I happen to be in the area. I should come right away when you call for me anyway, young Master Nim. Billows shared his honest sentiments. The reason he had no choice but to come was because Cal never wasted his time. His intuition as a merchant was telling him something. It was telling him that something always happens whenever Cal called him. He had rushed over right away because he was curious what it would be this time. Cal slowly started to speak. Let's go to the Empire. The Empire. Billows was not shocked. It was because he had prepared himself for anything Cal might say. Cal casually added on, Yeah, but do you know any alchemists? Excuse me? Tap, tap, Cal tapped on the table as he continued. He was speaking in a contemplating tone. I'm sure that there are some alchemists who were pushed aside by the Empire without having been able to be a part of the Alchemist's Bell Tower. Just like in the Whipper Kingdom. Just like in the Whipper Kingdom. During the time when the Magic Tower ruled the land, there were mages who had walked away from the Magic Tower after seeing the cruel experiments and oppression of the people, as well as some who were kicked out after asking the Magic Tower to change their methods. Although the Alchemist's Bell Tower was pretty quiet right now, they were also conducting cruel experiments. There were bound to be people who could not stand such experiments and acted out or walked out on their own accord. Cal watched as Billows slowly opened his mouth. Billows started to speak. Although I do not know of anybody, I will find someone. Yes, that's the type of response I like. It was easy to talk to Billows. Billows cautiously asked Cal, who seemed to be satisfied. But what do you plan to do if you find such an alchemist? Put them to work. Excuse me. Cal ignored Billows's question and said what he needed to say. Do you know where to buy ingredients for alchemy? There are a lot in the Empire. Then buy a lot of the things I tell you to buy. Ooh, Yes, sir. Rayon started to speak in Cal's mind, human. Are we making that pillar of fire too? The 1,000-year-old ancient dragon had a significant amount of knowledge in alchemy as well. Iruhaben looked at the liquid that created the pillar of fire and started to speak. The humans made something quite entertaining. Iruhaben was currently researching in his lair after getting intrigued. Cal planned to get everything he needed while he was in the Empire. Human, this sounds fun. There was no reason they couldn't make it when the Empire could. Chapter 152. To the Empire too. Then should I head to the Empire first? Yes, My plans will correspond with His Highness, so you can move accordingly as well. The Crown Prince was advertising his visit to the Empire to everyone. There was no reason to hide it, since his actions would make the citizens of the Roan Kingdom believe that he was a just prince. I understand. Cal ended this short meeting after seeing Billows nod his head without asking anything else. The two planned on having a long conversation in the Empire's capital over drinks. This was because they each had a lot of things to do. Cal started to move quickly. First of all, he needed to take care of all of the documents related to Harris Village before the Tiger Tribe arrived. Basin, long time no see. Yes, hi Young Nim. His younger brother Basin, whom he had not seen for a while, was now very involved in the territory's administration. Although Count Daruth had said that Cal was in charge of this Harris Village situation, he still put Basin by Cal's side. I can report things to Basin like this once he becomes the Lord. Cal was planning on not doing much, but should there be a reason for him to report something, he felt relaxed that he could report to Basin like this. That was why Cal's expression was calm as he handed Basin the documents. Here, these are the documents I created. Thank you, Hyung Nim. I'm happy to be able to support you like this. Support? Father did not tell you to support me. He told us to work together. Cal sighed at Basin's statement. He was thinking that his father had stuck Basin with him because he was worried that Cal would not take care of things properly. It means that Basin is that trustworthy when it comes to administrative tasks. It should mean that Basin's status as the successor was further solidified. Basin looked at his brother, who was casually drinking tea after handing him the documents, and started to speak. Hyung Nim. Yes. Basin was touching the papers Cal had prepared, people who had lost their home. Furthermore, they were the strong Tiger Tribe. Cal Henitus had brought them to their territory. Basin was amazed by his brother's level of sympathy and resourcefulness. Hyung Nim, I am currently working hard to learn about the workings of the territory. I believe that our territory has much more to offer than just marble, and so I plan to make the territory wealthier and sturdier. Cal liked Basin's mindset to become the Lord and make money. Great. I will continue to cheer you on. Thank you, Hyung Nim. I really hope to show that to you in the future. Basin's stoic face seemed quite passionate. Well, no need to show it to me. No, I need to do so. Hyung Nim, I need to show you that I am quite a useful person for the territory. Cal looked toward Basin with shock. Basin stopped talking after seeing Cal's expression. I guess I am quite lacking compared to the people around Hyung Nim. That thought made Basin's expression stiffen up. He then heard Cal's voice. What the heck are you talking about? Basin Henitus, you are already a vital part of this territory. Do not have such thoughts. Cal was flabbergasted. Where else would you be able to find a great future lord like Basin? Cal waved at Basin in order to say that he did not want to hear anything else as Basin clenched the papers in his hands. Yes, sir. I will work very hard. He gave an energetic response before leaving Cal's study. Cal watched Basin's back with satisfaction before standing up. Rayon slowly appeared and asked him a question. Human. What? Do you plan on becoming the Lord? What nonsense are you saying now? Don't say such a scary thing. Rayon tilted his head in confusion, but Cal decided not to think about it anymore as it was giving him the chills. However, Rayon, who was invisible, asked him internally once more as Cal headed to meet Countess Violan. Human, what does a lord of a territory do? Can you travel a lot? Why is he being like this? Cal ignored Rayon and looked toward the Countess. Violan, who still did not have even a single hair out of place, started to speak to Cal. Your face seems so skinny. You're heading to the Empire with His Highness? Yes, he seems to need my help for the investigation of the magic bomb incident. Cal flinched a bit at Violan's gaze that seemed to be looking right through him. Countess Violan casually asked, Does His Highness often give you difficult tasks? They are not too hard. Is that so? Countess Violan started to smile. Then I am relieved. What? Cal could not tell why he was getting a chilly feeling when looking at the Countess. He hid his confusion as he started to speak. Mother, is Mueller currently resting? Mueller, the dwarf and rat tribe mixed blood, Cal had heard that he was resting in the castle after completing the ship. The countess, who was responsible for the sculptures and construction in the territory, looked at her son's face before starting to speak. I will send him to Harris Village. She easily understood his intentions. Thank you for your help. Sure. Cal finished the short conversation and headed back toward his study when he ran into Lily. His youngest sister Lily was standing in front of his study. Human? Your sister has gotten strong, yes. She does seem that way. The sword on Lily's back was even larger now. She had a medium-length sword on her waist and a greatsword on her back. She looked very scary. Or a boonie. Cal caressed Lily's head as she slowly approached him. You've improved quite a bit. Lily scratched her cheeks as if she was embarrassed about the compliment. Cal was genuinely impressed. Compared to Cal, whose skin was white, Lily was dark and tanned as if she had trained a lot underneath the sun. She was also tall for her age. He could feel the effort that she had put in. Lily, it looks like you will become the strongest of us siblings. Lily energetically nodded her head. I will get stronger and protect the territory. Splendid. Cal shared his true feelings. I know that you will do well. I think twin blades would suit you well. Yes, my master told me that defense is more difficult than offense. I will become a knight who knows how to protect. Lily was young, but had heard about everything her older brothers had done. The majority of the stories were about her oldest brother, Cal. Her master had told her this when she shared those stories with him. Lily, when I was the knight captain of a small territory, there was one important thing I learned. Master, what was it? The door needs to be sturdy, the door. Yes, the door. If a sturdy door protects the entrance of the territory so that nobody can be tempted to take it, the people inside will have no fear. So I should become a knight that is like that door, yes. You must become a door that is even sturdier than the castle wall. Lily shared that with her oldest brother. I will become a knight that is like a door. Cal flinched while wondering what she was talking about, but nodded his head while thinking that a young child should have a vivid imagination. All right, work hard. Just don't try to rush anything. Yes, sir. Cal watched as Lily headed back to train with excitement on her face before opening the door to the study. The smile on his face quickly disappeared. Frisia, long time no see. The assassin who is pretending to be a sculptor. The woman who had sculpted the devil-like rabbit bowed her head at Cal's greeting. Cal picked up the cup of tea Ron offered him as soon as he sat down on his chair. Frisia. Yes, sir. Did you say you are from the Southwest District? You needed to cross the border from the Roan Kingdom's Southwest District in order to get into the Empire. The Crown Prince was planning on teleporting to the Southwest District and then crossing the border with the envoy. Yes, sir. I am from the Southwest. The territory that was at the southwest border. The Jaira territory. It was Duchess Jaira's territory. Cal quietly observed Frisia. The people who were a part of Cal's information network along with Frisia were all originally assassins. They used to roam the southwest while taking jobs from the nobles. Cal started to speak. The reason all of you ran away from the Southwest District was because of your attempted assassination of a noble after killing your leader. Yes, sir. That is correct. The Assassins' Guild had only killed nobles. However, the leader had accepted a job to kidnap a young child. Frisia, who disagreed with it, killed the leader and attempted to assassinate the noble who ordered the job. And that noble was a vassal of the Southwest Territory's lord? Yes, sir. One of Duke Jaira's vassals had done such a terrible thing. He ordered the kidnapping of a child in the Roan Kingdom where slaves were outlawed. Frisia cautiously started to speak after seeing Cal starting to smile. Young Master Nim, may I ask the reason you asked about it? A reason. Cal answered without any hesitation, to grasp their weakness. The Southwest's Jaira territory. That was the door to the Empire. They could not allow such a door to be weak. Since he did not know what would happen in the future, he needed to make it so that they would be able to defend it with their lives. Cal casually continued to speak to Frisia, who seemed very concerned about Duke Jaira's territory. I have a very sturdy backing. What would be the problem when I have the Crown Prince? Cal thought about Antonio Jaira, the future successor to Duke Jaira's position. They said that he is authoritative and cares a lot about other people's perceptions. Cal looked toward Frisia and started to speak. I will be spending some time in that territory on my way to and from the Empire. Frisia, you understand what I mean, right? Frisia, the gentle-looking middle-aged woman, understood exactly what Cal was talking about and answered back. I will work hard to prepare the blackmail in order for you to start as soon as you return. Blackmail? Why would you say something like that? Excuse me. Frisia could see Cal starting to smile gently. He then started to speak to Frisia in a gentle tone, almost as if he was whispering. I am simply a just noble. What the Frisia questioned Cal's response, but still nodded her head. Yes, sir, you are correct. You are definitely a just noble young master Nim. She could see Ron smiling the same way Cal was smiling once she looked up. Cal became happy after seeing Ron and Frisia in front of him. They were definitely trustworthy enough to rely on. Cal finished his preparations and only took the people he needed to take with him. There was no need to talk about Rayon, who was following in his invisible form, as well as the others. All right, my guardian knight, are you ready? Choi Han smiled back at Cal's bright expression. Yes, Cal Nim. Yes, sir, young Master Nim. Vice Captain Hilsman peeked to his side as he responded. Finally, the person, well, the ancient dragon pretending to be a person just sighed. Ha! Choi Han, Hilsman, and Eru Haben. These three were going as Cal's guards. They got into the Henetus territory's teleportation magic circle and immediately headed for the capital. Cal could see Alberu and a diplomat waiting for him once he arrived at the capital. The Crown Prince opened up his arms and welcomed Cal. Young Master Cal Henetus, thank you for coming. I thought that you would be the best choice to accompany me to the Empire. Cal lightly hugged Alberu as if he was honored and started to speak. Your Highness, although I may be lacking, I am glad that I will be able to help out the kingdom. The middle-aged diplomat who came with Alberu started to speak with a satisfied expression after hearing Cal's response. No wonder His Highness thinks so highly of you. Your thoughts for the kingdom are deep. Thank you for thinking of me so highly. As a noble, it is only natural to think about the kingdom and its citizens at all times. The diplomat, who was the leader of the envoy, was satisfied with Cal's response. The diplomat started to speak. I came to see what kind of person His Highness wanted by his side, but it looks like there was no need for me to come. Alberu had personally recommended Cal Henetus for this envoy. Since Cal was just the son of a common noble, the diplomat had come to inspect Cal. Cal and Alberu made eye contact with each other at that moment. The Crown Prince confidently responded back. He is young, Master Silver Shield. I told you that he is a noble person and that there is no need to worry. Young Master Silver Shield, Cal started to frown. That is true. I saw that silver shield with my own eyes. That was really amazing, young Master Cal. It was nothing. I just used some of my worthless power. Bad, how could you call it worthless? I hope the chance to see that shield again appears in the future, ha 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 ha. There was warmth in the diplomat's gaze, as if he was looking at the future of the kingdom. Cal smiled as well and touched the back of his head. So weird. Why is the back of my head getting cold as I listen to this diplomat talk? The back of Cal's neck continued to feel chilly even though he was thinking that there will be no reason for him to use the shield again in the future. Chapter 153. To the Empire 3. However, things progressed smoothly despite Cal's chilly neck. Human, standing still is fun too. Cal slightly nodded his head at Rayon's comment. Of course, standing still is the best. A mountain is a mountain and water is water. Cal followed the envoy around with the Crown Prince in the center like the water of a river running down the path. Naturally, the people who were taking the role of his guards moved around with him. At that moment, a low-ranking official approached them. Young Master Cal Nim, we will soon move to the teleportation magic circle. Why did he come here to tell me this? Cal found it odd that this official came here to tell him this, but thanked him for his generosity nonetheless. I understand, thank you for letting me know. Of course, that is why His Highness is telling you to come to the front. Excuse me. Excuse me. Cal asked, and the official asked back. The official looked at Cal, who was blinking in confusion, and continued to speak. Did you not hear about it from His Highness? I am not sure what you are talking about. The slightly flustered official looked to the front, and Cal's gaze headed to the front as well. There was the Knights Brigade that was protecting the envoy with the main character, the Crown Prince, standing behind them. Alberu and Cal made eye contact. Alberu was smiling brightly. Cal flinched. "Young Master Cal, hurry and get up here." Alberu motioned for him to hurry, and the official let out a sigh of relief that he was not wrong as he looked toward Cal. "Let's head up there for now." Cal and his guards slowly approached Alberu. Alberu smiled while looking at Cal, who was casually walking up to him, even though the Crown Prince had called for him while being surrounded by high-ranked officials. "Your Highness, did you call for me?" "Yes. You will go to the teleportation magic circle with me." Cal held back his concern while seeing Alberu pretending to be nice and asked, "To the palace's teleportation magic circle?" "No. This time, we will be heading to the teleportation magic circle by the castle wall. I plan to show the citizens the procession of our envoy." "Ha, really?" Alberu's thoughts were obvious in Cal's mind. Alberu was currently known as the Crown Prince who would not let go of the investigation of the terror incident. Furthermore, every administrative task that he was involved in ended with positive results. Such a talented individual was also focused on justice. That just Crown Prince was heading out at the Empire's invitation. He was heading out to find the truth. Next to him was Cal Henitus, the hero of the terror incident. There was no way that the Crown would let them go stealthily. Cal was already starting to get annoyed. However, Alberu pretended to not know what Cal was thinking as he started to speak. "I'll be able to see the citizens look for young Master Silverlight again. Ha 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 ha. Young Master Silverlight. Young Master Shield." Cal hated those nicknames. However, Cal agreed that this was the right move by the Crown. He responded to Alberu. "I cannot compare to you, Your Highness, the star of our kingdom. Isn't that so?" Cal respectfully asked while looking at the other officials who nodded their heads. "Of course." "His Highness is the star of the kingdom, as you said, young Master Cal." "Star, I really like that phrasing." Half of this envoy was made up of nobles who followed Alberu, while the other half was a mix of lower-ranking nobles who used to follow other princes and officials originally from neutral noble households. The lower-ranking nobles and neutral nobles could not help but be wary of Alberu as his power continued to grow, so they each added on at least a word of flattery toward him. Cal had a smile of satisfaction on his face as he watched Alberu's facade of a smile start to twitch. At that moment, the voice of one official reached his ear. "Young Master Cal, you seem to be someone His Highness cherishes a lot." Many prying gazes reached him after hearing those comments. Cal Henitus, the man that the Crown Prince that was gaining power had personally summoned. This man was a noble that the citizens were curious about. Each of the officials' gazes had different meanings as they looked at this son of a noble, whom they didn't know how they would end up interacting with in the future. Cal just smiled and started to think. What did they say was delicious in the Empire's capital again? Although they were going to do something big, he did not plan to put in much work. The Crown Prince then ordered the envoy, "Let's go." The envoy started to move. Cal used the teleportation magic circle in order to arrive at the Jaira territory. PFFT, ahem. He ignored Alberu, who was trying to hold back his laughter. Rayon's voice echoed in Cal's head. "Human, the child with the replica of your shield will probably grow up well. He will become a success." Cal frowned before quickly smiling again. The cheers for the envoy and the Crown Prince was amazing. However, there were voices in there shouting for young Master Silverlight as well. Don't they ever forget. The worst part was when a young child shouted out, "I want to be a cool person like you, young Master Nim." His dad had lifted him high in the air so that he could get a better look. The two of them made eye contact, and Cal subconsciously blurted out, "You won't be cool at all if you are like me." The child's pupils started to shake. Cal realized what he had said, and Alberu was holding back his laughter. There was also the child's father who became nervous. Cal looked toward the father and said whatever came to his mind. "Take after your father instead. Only your parents are cool enough to hug you and lift you up like this." The father was touched, while the child became excited after hearing that his dad was cool. Daltero, The diplomat in charge of the envoy was satisfied with Cal's response. Cal shut up after that and followed the procession into the teleportation magic circle. That was hard. Acting without a purpose was not to Cal's liking. However, there was a purpose now. Cal's expression turned to a respectful, noble young master. There was a group bowing their heads to the Crown Prince's envoy. "It is our honor to meet with His Highness, the Crown Prince." There was an old woman in front of the group. Cal could see her white hair in a bun without a single strand of hair sticking out, reminding him of Countess Violan. This was Sonata Jaira, the almost 80-year-old daughter of the founder of the duchy and the current leader of the dukedom. She was known as the woman with iron blood, and as a woman of misfortune, her husband, as well as her only son and his wife, were assassinated. The former duke had lived a long time. That was why the determination for a successor did not happen until his oldest children were in their 50s. As a result, all sorts of things happened as in Marquis Stan's family. Sonata's husband, her son, and her daughter-in-law all died in a carriage accident. The only ones to survive were Sonata and her grandson Antonio, who were not in the carriage at the time. That incident that happened less than a year after Antonio was born was what gave her the nickname of woman with iron blood. In the end, only Sonata was left as the successor. Sonata, the youngest of her siblings, was the last one standing. As the only remaining heir, she rose up to the position of Duchess, and unlike the Stan family, she chose to embrace the remaining bloodline. She then groomed Antonio to be the future duke. Long time no see, Duchess Jaira. Your Highness, I believe that we have not met since you visited the Empire last year. Alberu nodded his head at Sonata's words and looked toward Antonio Jaira. He looked neat and tidy. These words suited Antonio very well. He slightly bowed toward Alberu. It is an honor to see you again, Your Highness. Thank you, young Master Antonio. Sonata pointed to Antonio. I will guide you right now, but Antonio will be responsible for Your Highness and the envoy until you depart tomorrow, Alberu casually asked. It looks like young Master Antonio will soon take over the household. The white-haired woman started to smile. Isn't it only natural to do so? The Jaira territory followed the second prince. The future duke of that territory was going to be responsible for Alberu, the crown prince. Her intentions were to give Antonio an important task and build relations with the crown prince in the process. However, the Jaira family still had not let go of their support for the second prince. That is the way of the world. Cal understood Duchess Jaira's actions. Cal turned his gaze away from Alberu and Duchess Sonata and instead looked toward Antonio. He ended up making eye contact with Antonio. Why is he looking at me? Cal did not know the reason. However, Cal smiled toward Antonio with a smile that was full of curiosity. Antonio slightly flinched before smiling back. Human, why are you smiling like that again? Why does he always ask that when he already knows the answer? Cal ignored Rayon's question and looked toward Alberu, who was moving under Duchess Sonata's guide. Cal slowly left the teleportation magic circle and prepared to move to the Jaira castle. Other than the crown prince, who was being escorted by the Duchess, young Master Antonio was responsible for the rest of the envoy. He greeted the officials who had been next to Alberu. Naturally, Cal was with those officials as well after being next to Alberu for the procession. Young Master Cal Henitus, nice to meet you. Antonio Jaira. He reached his hand out to Cal Henitus after greeting the other officials. The normal Antonio would not take the initiative to greet someone from a family of lower rank. Antonio was someone who moved based on how people scored on his personal standard. In that aspect, Cal Henitus gets a pass. Contrary to the rumors that he was trash, Cal had seemed quite noble-like when they met last year at the capital. He also had an ancient power and fame. Most importantly, he is someone that the crown prince treasures. Someone the sly first prince treasures must be talented. Antonio had heard from his grandmother many times that, although Alberu had an innocent smile on his face, he was an extremely sly individual. The first prince is not an average person. Antonio, you will lose if you look down on him. Do you understand what your grandmother is trying to say? That was why Antonio had been looking forward to meeting with Cal. Cal seemed to know Antonio's thought, as he reacted in a way that Antonio liked. Cal had a confident yet respectful attitude as he shook Antonio's hand. "Young Master Antonio Jaira, it is an honor to meet you. I am happy to meet the family that guards the kingdom's southwestern border. No, it is my honor to meet someone from the Henetus family that protects the kingdom from the forest of darkness." Cal Henetus, the eldest son of the Henetus family, the strongest family in the leaderless northeast region. Antonio Jaira, the heir to the Jaira family, the leader of the southwest region. There were many gazes pointing toward them, however. The three knights who suddenly surrounded Cal made the others unable to hear what they were discussing. Cal stealthily whispered to Antonio, "I hope that we can make some time to chat over some drinks." A chat. Antonio's eyes clouded over as his gaze moved toward Cal. Cal responded back with a bright smile. "Yes, a fun conversation. It really will be a fun conversation. Only for me, though." Cal noticed that the way Antonio was looking at him had slightly changed. "Young Master Cal, you are a bit different than I had heard." Are you talking about the rumors that I was trash?" Antonio shrugged his shoulders and did not respond to Cal's question. However, he started to think as he looked at Cal. "They said that he was good and just, but he seems to seek power as well. In the end, nobles were all the same." Antonio remembered what his grandmother had told him when she officially announced him as the heir. "Antonio, the nobles I have seen are all similar. They all move for their own selfish reasons, but I believe that is human nature, not just the nature of nobles." Antonio only half agreed with her statement. He whispered back to Cal, "I am always open to a conversation." Antonio then let go of Cal's hand. Cal stepped back as well, and the two of them ended their conversation. Cal looked at Antonio walking away and started to think, "I need to act like a just noble who cares about the kingdom during our conversation." The birth of a hero. While Marquis Stan's family had shown up as the villain in the novel, Antonio Jaira was introduced as someone who was neither an enemy nor friend. There was a short description of his personality. There was one more line. Antonio was a complicated yet simple person. Cal held back his smile and headed to rest in his designated room until the Crown Prince called for him. There were knights standing in front of Alberu's room. These knights were all undercover dark elves. "Why are you smiling like that?" "Your Highness." "Why are you speaking in that tone all of a sudden?" Cal gently started to speak to the wary Crown Prince. "Your Highness, wouldn't it be great if you gained more loyal subordinates?" Alberu quietly observed Cal before finally starting to speak. "Who?" "The owner of this house." Alberu took some time to stare at Cal again before casually adding on, "Take care of it. You can use my name as you will." "Yes, sir, I understand. How about a 7-3 split if I succeed?" Alberu let out a sigh and nodded his head. "That much is worth it if it is the owner of this house, by the way." "Yes, Your Highness. The Magoru Empire's Imperial Prince probably knows about you, right?" Cal confidently nodded his head. "He should know me as young Master Silver Light and the bastard who put out the jungle fire." Cal Henetus had not hidden his identity when he put out the fire in Section 1 of the jungle. He had also prevented the Roan Kingdom's terror incident. "Won't the Imperial Prince greet you friendlier than he greets me?" "Absolutely not." Alberu sighed at Cal's response. He did not seem to agree with Cal. A few days later, when Cal arrived at the capital of the Magoru Empire, contrary to Alberu's expectations, the Imperial Prince did not treat Cal the best. He showed most care for Alberu. However, Cal was only second to Alberu. "Oh. I have heard stories about you. They say that you are the young hero who prevented the terror incident in the Roan Kingdom." The Imperial Prince was a large man who reminded Cal of a big dog. This was Adin, the Imperial Prince of the Magoru Empire. "It is an honor to meet you, Your Highness." Yes, I'm happy to know that there is a hero like you in the world." Happy my ass. Cal was now certain. This sociopath-like bastard in front of him considered him to be his greatest enemy after Alberu. Cal could tell. Human, he is smiling while giving off a cold vibe, exactly. Cal agreed with Rayon's assessment. However, Cal responded back like an embarrassed yet just individual. Not at all. I am not a hero. I just did what anybody would do. Cal, who was acting like a good person, had arrived at the Empire's capital for the first time. Chapter 154. Rolling in by the Vine One. Ha ha ha, what a wonderful attitude. I wish I could speak with you more, but I do not have the time. Imperial Prince Adin laughed out loud before walking past Cal with a disappointed expression. Cal respectfully bowed as Adin casually added on. I hope we get the time to chat during the celebration. Absolutely not. Cal did not have any desire to chat with this Imperial Prince. I'll just quietly stay on the terrace. Cal made up his mind as he watched Imperial Prince Adin walk away. There was a combined welcome for the envoy as well as the end-of-the-year celebration after they conducted their investigation. Cal was planning on quietly staying on the terrace during the celebration. He heard Rayon's voice at that time. Human, that Imperial Prince punk seems to be about as strong as our cowardly vice-captain. Huo. Cal started to smile. Imperial Prince Adin, the man laughing like an idiot and had used alchemy to cause all types of issues, was a high-grade knight. At least that was what people thought. But he is actually a highest-grade knight. Vice-Captain Hilsman had gotten stronger, to the point that he had reached the level of a highest-grade expert. However, the fact that Adin was at the same level meant that he was talented. How entertaining. Cal had read many stories about the Imperial Prince in the novel. However, he did not know as much about the Imperial Prince as he knew about Choi Han or Alberu. Imperial Prince Adin was not a main character in the first 5 volumes. Cal was quite intrigued by Adin, who seemed to be hiding a lot of things. However, I can't just get close to him because I'm curious. Cal planned on simply quietly doing his thing and moving out. Rayon started to speak in his head. Human. There is a person who feels like someone from our family over there. Cal's heart dropped. What? Family? Cal was anxious. Is it another dragon? Was that even possible? Cal hid his anxiety as he urgently looked around the people who came from the Empire to greet them. He started to speak at the same time. Haben. What is it, young Master Nim? Are there any people here, MM? Are there any people similar to you here? Cal ended up turning around to look at Haben. He could then see Haben giving him a "what is this unlucky human saying now" type of gaze. At that moment, he heard Rayon's voice. Human, isn't he a cat? The red-haired guy in your 9 o'clock direction. Cal turned his head in that direction. He could see a knight with red hair. Haben turned toward the knight as well and chuckled as he started to speak. Young Master Nim, did the little kid tell you? The family Rayon was talking about were on and Hong. The ancient dragon started to speak as if he was amused. He seems to be quite strong. The gold dragon, Haben, took a half-step forward to stand right behind Cal. He made sure he was close enough that nobody else could hear before he started to whisper. The cat tribe does not like to appear in the world. They also specialize in assassinations. The cat tribe was well known in the eastern continent, however, not as well in the western continent. They lived stealthily while avoiding other people. Furthermore, they were talented in assassination, stealth, and information gathering. Haben continued to whisper in a curious voice. Do you think he is trying to kill someone? Is that something I want to know? Cal felt his ear starting to get cold after hearing what Haben had to say. He learned something useless again. Let's forget about it. Cal decided to forget about it. However, things ended up twisting in a weird way. This is where young Master Cal Henatus Nim will be staying. The servant from the Empire pointed to one of the rooms in the tower next to the tower Alberu was staying in. The servant then introduced himself and the people around him. You can leave all your errands and random needs to me. These individuals are the knights who are assigned to this tower, young Master Nim. The 5 knights bowed and briefly introduced themselves. The red-haired cat was among the group. It would have been impossible to tell that he was a cat if Rayon had not told him. Cal avoided the cat. We will not assign any guard to your door as you have brought some guards with you, young Master Nim. However, we will assign some knights if you would prefer us to do so. No, there is no need for any more of them. Cal rejected the servant's offer. Then please call me if you need anything, young Master Nim. Sure. Cal sent the servant away and entered the bedroom. He heard Rayon's voice at that moment. Human? There is someone hiding in the ceiling above your bed. He is spying on you. Oh, his stealth is at the level of the sculptor who made the amazing rabbit. It's pretty good. I knew it would be like this. Cal looked indifferent. Although there were many rooms in the tower where Alberu was staying, they had assigned Cal to the next tower over. It was different than the rest of Alberu's assistants, who were all assigned to the same tower as Alberu. Adin must be curious about me. Although the Imperial Prince may have been hesitant to spy on someone in the envoy, he must have been curious about Cal, since I put out the jungle fire. Cal was the person who had single-handedly put out the fire in the jungle. Originally, a shaman would come over from the eastern continent at a later time to put out the fire. But that is weird as well. Knowing that Arm and the Empire were working together, Cal was suspicious of that shaman who had come over from the eastern continent in the novel. How did the shaman put out a magic fire that water could not put out? What if that shaman was a member of Arm? What if that was all part of the ploy? Then all of those highest-grade magic stones that the shaman found would have gone to the Empire and Arm. How terrible. It sounded like a terrible situation. However, it was a possible theory. That incident would lead to shamans being welcomed into the jungle. It is one of the Empire's preferred methods. Implanting spies was something that the Empire did often. If the shaman became a spy like that, then the jungle would have eventually fallen to the Empire as well. Hoo-woo! Cal let out a sigh before starting to speak to Choi Han and Eru Haben. Let's go out. Right now, Cal answered the confused Choi Han's question. I need to exchange some money. I also heard that Billows was in the Empire. I should go meet my good friend. Cal said it a bit louder than usual for the spy to hear. He put on a robe and threw masks toward the other two. Put on robes and the masks so we can go without any commotion. Cal headed out of the palace with Choi Han and Eru Haben. Although it was annoying, they were able to easily get through the gates as the Crown Prince had given them permission. Although someone is tailing me. Cal listened to Rayon describe the tale as he leisurely walked toward the Flynn Merchant Guild's location in the Empire's capital. The Magoru Empire's capital. There was a decently sized building near the central plaza. This building was Flynn Merchant Guild's shop #1. Cal showed his joy to see Billows. Long time no see. Yes, young Master Nim, I am so happy to see you here. I am happy to see my old friend as well. Billows started to speak to a staff member. I will not be taking any more guests today. He then turned back to speak to Cal. I will escort you to my room. Cal, Choi Han, and Eru Haben followed Billows to a corner room on the second floor of the Flynn Merchant Guild building. Cal jokingly asked Billows, "This can't be your room, right?" It was an average-looking room. Billows smiled before pushing the bookshelf on the wall to the side. A staircase heading down appeared. Cal sat down on the chair located in this small underground room and started to speak. Your room is smaller than I expected. It is a nice room because it is modest and quiet. Billows joked back with Cal. However, he soon got down to business. Young Master Nim, I found it. He had found an alchemist who was not part of the alchemist's bell tower. Cal drank the cup of tea Billows offered him as he asked, "What kind of person is it?" He is a famous alchemist in the underworld. The underworld. This was something that existed no matter what city or country you went to. However, it was not important to Cal where that alchemist was famous. That was why he asked once more. So what kind of person is he? Billows smiled as he responded back. He is a good but bad person. Cal could deduct a couple of things from that answer. He seems to be a bad person based on how he works in the underworld, but he is still a good person. Billows quietly observed the silent Cal before starting to describe some details about the alchemist. Choi Han frowned after hearing the information. It was different than what he had expected. Cal said just one thing a few seconds after Billows finished his explanation. Good. He was what Cal was looking for. A decently good and decently bad person was best to put to work. Cal casually added on, I should go meet him right away. Already? Cal Nim, you mean right now? Billows and Choi Han both voiced their shock. Cal looked toward the shocked Choi Han. Cal started to speak once Choi Han flinched at his gaze. Choi Han. Yes, sir. I will escort you if you plan on go. Take it off. Silence filled the room. Cal looked toward Choi Han, who was standing there with a blank expression, and started to frown. What are you doing? Excuse me. Let's change clothes. Ah, Cal took off his robe and took off his formal jacket underneath as Choi Han let out that stupid sound. Billows. Yes, yes, sir. Billows, who had been watching with confusion, answered in shock. Cal told Billows what he needed. Look up some more information on that alchemist. Bring me the files. Oh, and Billows, there's a residence you are staying at, right? There is. Cal nodded his head at Billows's response and pointed to himself. Send me there to get some alcohol. Excuse me. Cal did not respond to Billows, who asked that with a blank expression on his face, and instead looked toward Haben, who had been standing there with a smile on his face. Haben. Yes, young Master Nim, do I just need to switch the two of you? Yes. Cal pointed to his and Choi Han's hair as he nodded his head at Haben's statement. Oh, I thought he was a knight, but he is a high-grade mage Nim. Billows finally let out a gasp of admiration and nodded his head. It was because he understood why Cal had brought a precious high-grade mage while disguising him as a knight. Cal smiled toward Billows, who was looking at him as Haben used magic on him and Choi Han. A moment later, Billows walked down to the first floor and gave the staff member an order. Prepare some fruits and food. Get some alcohol as well. Right now, Billows nodded his head with a happy expression on his face toward the anxious staff member. Of course. My old friend, the young Master Nim, is here. We need to at least have a drink. Choi Han. Billows started to speak to the man who was wearing a mask which only made his black hair and black eyes visible. He could see the unique knight's armor between the robes of the man named Choi Han. There is good wine at my residence. Go get me some. He was sending a knight to go get some alcohol. Although it would make sense for him to get angry, the person named Choi Han silently bowed his head and headed out of the building with a map in his hand. A voice echoed in the black-haired man's head. Human, there is only one person following you. The rest are still hiding around the Flynn Merchant Guild building. One makes this easy. Cal headed toward Billows's residence with light footsteps. Cal showed the butler the message on the back of the map once he got there. I will escort you to it. Cal followed the butler into Billows's study. The butler soon left, and Cal looked out the window once he was left alone. It is the second floor. The study was on the second floor. A moment later, a person wearing a robe headed out through the window. Human, the person tailing you is still at the entrance of the residence. Cal nodded his head and stealthily left the building using the sound of the wind. He headed to a place that existed everywhere, just like the underworld, the slums. He was walking toward the slums. Cal's hair that was sticking out of the robe was white. Knock, knock, knock. A person knocked on the door of a house that looked like it was about to break down. It was in the corner of the slums where no light shined down from the sun. These buildings that even the people in the slums avoided served as a resting place for animals or people escaping from the rain. This house was located around those broken buildings. Knock, knock, knock. However, there was no response even after knocking for a while. The person who was knocking on the door let out a sigh before starting to knock a bit louder. Bang, bang, bang. My goodness, why can't you just go away? The sound of someone grumbling inside could be heard before the old door slowly opened. Screech. A tired, middle-aged man appeared through the open door. The man slightly flinched before starting to speak. Who are you? The man who had been knocking on the door respectfully bowed his head. That action made the man inside the house start to speak with a stoic expression. Why did a priest Nim come all the way here? The man that was called a priest. The man with the long white hair was wearing a white priest robe with no crest on it. That man, Cal, smiled gently and started to speak. Rayon spoke in his mind. There is nobody around. Cal started to speak as well. I came because I wanted to destroy the bell tower. The expression of the man in the house, the alchemist, quickly changed. Chapter 155, Rolling in by the Vine 2. Cal looked toward the stiff alchemist and started to speak. May I come in? The alchemist opened and closed his mouth a few times before verifying that nobody else was around and then moving to the side. Come in for now. Cal immediately walked in. He was walking with a relaxed pace. as if he was going into his own living room. He then walked over to a chair with a broken back and sat down. He could see alchemy tools that have not been sanitized properly as he looked around. Alchemy in this world was similar to alchemy on Earth. It was used to make gold. However, the methods of doing so were different. The alchemists of the Western continent sought to use natural elements to create gold. Specifically, they tried to use water, wind, earth, wood, and fire. These 5 natural elements were the main elements used to attempt to create gold. These 5 elements were intertwined with mana as well. Clack, Cal looked toward the table with broken corners in front of him. There was a round bowl sitting there. There is only cold water in the house. I do not know what kind of priest Nim you are, but please drink this cold water and then get on your way. The alchemist filled the bowl with cold water and pushed it toward Cal. Cal did not even look at the bowl. His gaze was focused on the alcohol bottles in the room amongst the alchemy tools. What are you looking at? Agu, just what? The middle-aged alchemist saw that Cal's gaze was on the alcohol bottles and kicked them to one side. Ah, damn. Clang, clang, clang. The alcohol bottles made loud noises as they ran into the alchemy tools. The mess made the middle-aged man start to frown. He heard the priest's voice at that time. Alcoholic fake alchemist makes poison and small bombs for underworld organizations to use when they fight against each other. Alchemists were unable to make bombs that were as strong as magic bombs. However, they were able to borrow the power of nature in order to create small bombs. However, compared to magic bombs that had a 100% rate of success, their success rate depended on whether the power of nature could release mana or not. That was why it could be said that the timed magic bomb they found in Maple Castle was amazing. The tired and drunk man's gaze turned toward the priest. The two of them made eye contact. I heard that you would make anything as long as you got paid. Am I wrong? Cal did not know the man's name yet. There were only a few things he knew about him. This man was someone who had not appeared in the first 5 volumes of The Birth of a Hero, and Billows had only brought a small amount of information about him. He is said to have been acting in this fake alchemist role for approximately 10 years. The underworld organizations think he is fake because his poisons and small bombs are only made properly half the time. A fake alchemist with a 50% chance of success. That made Cal let out a snort. It means that he knows how to make 50% of the real thing. That was enough. What Cal wanted was someone with basic alchemy skills and something else. This middle-aged man had that something else. Fake alchemist. It was said that nobody knew his name. However, he had many nicknames. So, are you saying that you want to pay me to do a job? A priest wants to hire me. That is the case. Ho! The alchemist picked up a bottle of alcohol on the floor. He opened the bottle and started to chug. He then wiped the alcohol off the side of his lips with the back of his hand as he started to speak. I've never seen such a crazy priest. Russell. The middle-aged man turned his gaze to the priest who seemed to be responding to his statement. He then flinched as his body started to shake. Tap. Cal put a small bottle on top of the table. It was full of a black liquid. That Cal could see the alchemist's hands shaking. The alchemist turned his gaze away from the small bottle and looked toward the priest. However, the priest was not looking at the alchemist's face but his left wrist. There was no hand there. This liquid seems to black like your left wrist, Alchemist Nim. The round left wrist was dyed black. It looked like the remains of being charred by fire. This is from when I was poisoned as a child. The alchemist quickly covered his wrist with his sleeve. Cal continued to look at the left sleeve as he gently started to speak. It looks like you chose to amputate your hand rather than healing it when you realized how serious the poison was. Cal remembered what Billows had told him. He always complains of pain as he buys alcohol. The middle-aged man avoided Cal's gaze. That is none of your concern, Priest Nim. I heard that your body turns black when you are poisoned by dead mana. The people who use dead mana look like they have black spider webs all over their body. The ones who are poisoned by dead mana slowly become dyed black as they die. Any human affected by dead mana, including necromancers, suffer intense pain throughout their lives. Just how serious of a poison was it that it is black? I also heard that you suffer from pain every day. The alchemist started to think. He could not allow this to continue. He could not let everything be ruined because of this priest who suddenly showed up. The alchemist stopped avoiding the priest's gaze and turned his head back. At that moment, the priest with blue eyes that were looking at him started to speak. 15 years ago. The alchemist was finding it difficult to breathe. 15 years ago, the alchemist's bell tower said that they wanted to contribute to the empire and took in some orphans and children from the slums. They taught them and made them do menial chores. I think they said the age range was between 5 and 15. 15 years ago. It was a decent amount of time. The citizens of the empire sent tributes to the alchemist's bell tower that they had considered to be terrible, and now, the personal disciple of the tower head is a child from the slums. Some orphans and slum children had shown different levels of success. Then the alchemist's bell tower announced that they had sent the remaining children to the alchemy towers across the empire. People had believed them because successful children from the slums had delivered the news. Cal smiled while looking at the pale middle-aged man. However, they stopped doing that shit about 10 years ago. Shit. Cal was calling that praised action shit. Plop. Cal threw a few pages of paper onto the table. This was because 10 years ago was when they started to conspire with the Empire's royal family in order to kidnap the citizens and use them for experiments. Cal tapped on the documents that described this situation as he continued to speak. They no longer needed the children that they could kill without worrying about any consequences. Cal was no longer speaking formally. Although they were both sitting down, Cal was looking at the man as if he was looking down at him. The pale, middle-aged man barely managed to get a few words out. Stop, however. Cal was not someone who would stop just like that. He continued to speak to this pitiful man. And you appeared in these slums 10 years ago. This middle-aged man was supposedly not a part of the capital's alchemist's bell tower. There were a couple other alchemy towers across the empire. If it was 10 years ago, this man would have been young as well. That was the reason Cal focused on this man after listening to Billows's report. This man's 10 years and the 10 years described in the information given to him by the saint. They seemed to be related. Cal observed the alchemist, who seemed to be feeling both sorrow and fear as he continued to speak. I hear that the people of the slums, especially the children, like you and call you Ajasi or even Uncle. There were many nicknames used to address this person, as nobody knew his name. That was why Cal had come looking for him. I heard that you spend the remainder of your money after you buy your alcohol to buy food for the children. The children of the slums like this alcoholic alchemist. It was because he always gave them food and healed their injuries. Cal asked the man with the shaking pupils. Who are you? Who was this person that was acting like a fake alchemist and had amputated his own hand because it was poisoned by dead mana? I. The middle-aged man could not respond properly. Chaos, concern, and fear. The man who was full of those emotions, as well as some others, was severely shaking. Cal started to speak again. The bell tower has developed a dead mana bomb. The alchemist's shaking body stopped shaking for a moment. However, his eyes were still shaking as if he could not believe it. I'm sure that it was thanks to the children who died 15 years ago, as well as the people who were used as guinea pigs for the last 10 years. Ugh. The middle-aged man let out a noise that was either a cry or a moan and covered his face. He was a beginner alchemist who had run away after finding out the truth 10 years ago. The now middle-aged man felt suffocating fear fill his body. It was the fear coming from guilt. At that moment, the man who felt like he was drowning in a swamp of fear could hear the priest's voice. I plan to destroy the alchemist's bell tower. He heard the priest say one other word. Definitely destroy it. That sentence roared like thunder through the fear. The man who had curled up moved his right hand away from his face and looked toward the priest. The priest had a scary expression on his face. This indifferent gaze that showed neither happiness, anger, nor support was scary. The priest started to speak again. I will ask you one more time. Who are you? Cal looked down at the curled-up man. He was a bad but good person. Although his skills were so-so, he was someone with a conscience and a sense of guilt and responsibility. He was someone who knew how to regret. He was someone with his own sense of morals. Cal had determined that a church alone would make it difficult when he re-established the Church of the Sun God in the Empire. That meant that he needed another source of power as well. That was why Cal had thought about the Whipper Kingdom's civil war. He thought about the mages in hiding who were not a part of the Magic Tower. They had rebelled against the Magic Tower and gone into hiding. He was certain that there would be alchemists in the same situation, even if there were only a few. He needed to draw them out to the surface. He also needed someone to serve as their leader. This leader figure was the one Cal was trying to put to work. Rayon's voice could be heard in Cal's mind. Human, did this alcoholic experiment on those poor children 15 years ago as well? Who knows? Cal had no way of knowing. They were all pretty much the same to him. He heard the middle-aged man's voice at that time. Ray Stecker. That is my name. Ray Stecker. A beginner alchemist with so-so skills who had been at the Empire's Southern Alchemy Tower as a trainee for just 1 month. He had said his name for the first time in 11 years. His memories from 11 years ago seemed to pour into him as soon as he said his name. 1 month. They put me, a trainee, in charge of the children of the slums for 1 month. They told me that the children were from the capital. I did not know anything as I looked after them, and he had become close to them. Then I saw an experiment 1 month later. During that experiment, Ray's shoulders flinched. The skinny, middle-aged man's body seemed as if it would fall. He had held the hand of the child he was the closest with. He wanted to save the child. The child's fingernails had scratched the back of his hand at that time, and Ray had been poisoned by the dead mana. The Southern Alchemy Tower tried to get rid of him. He had cut off his own wrist and started to run. He ran like a madman. They stopped chasing him 1 year later, as if they assumed that he had died. I saw what those bastards were doing during that experiment. Ray Stecker, I did not come here to listen to your story. Ray looked toward the priest. I came to hire you. I heard that you do anything as long as you get paid. Those words calmed Ray Stecker down. He then looked toward the bottle of dead mana on the table. He also saw the documents with the bell tower's secrets. The priest in front of him was being serious. I will give you as much money as you want. Will you follow me regardless of what my conditions are? Ray Stecker asked in a shaking voice after hearing the priest's question. You plan to destroy the bell tower? Yes, definitely. Ray jumped up. He then walked over to a corner of the room and lifted up a wooden plank. There was a box underneath it. Ray opened the bottle and took out a glass jar. Clack, he placed the jar on top of the table. There was a black hand inside of the jar, a hand that would not rot. There was a small scratch on the back of that hand. Ray Stecker could not throw away the hand that had held onto the child. Cal could see that guilt and anger was burning in Ray's eyes. Cal started to speak. Wait for me. I will return with a contract. I do not need money. Please help me resolve my guilt. Cal stopped for a moment before getting up. He looked toward Ray, who was looking at him intently, and started to speak. If that is what you want in return, that is what we will do. Although Cal looked calm, Ray started to frown. The corners of his lips were shaking. Cal said one last thing to him before he left the shabby house. Drink the cold water and return to your senses. I don't care much for alcoholics. Screech. Cal left after saying that, and the door closed behind him. Ray Stecker looked at the door for a while before lifting up the bowl of cold water and drinking all of the water inside. Ugh, clack. He put the bowl back down on the table and started to speak. Now I feel refreshed. He had not felt this way for 11 years, the first day of the investigation. Crown Prince Alberu looked at the Church of the Sun God's Vatican and whispered to Cal. There is a secret table in a secret room. Their extremely friendly-looking position made the guards, secretaries, and servants curious, but none of that was Cal's issue. Cal sincerely responded to Alberu's question. Yes, Your Highness, apparently it is a pile of treasure. Alberu grunted and hid his smile. Cal watched Alberu and recalled what the Saint Jack had told him. I'm not sure if they managed to find the condemnation of the sun. The condemnation of the sun. The name alone was amazing enough for the saint to wield as he fought against the enemies and gathered the believers. Chapter 156. Rolling in by the vine 3. Does the condemnation of the Son actually exist? That was the crazy priestess Cage's response. She seemed to be shocked. That made Cal realize something. It is not an ordinary item. Jack started to speak as if he knew what Cal was thinking about. It is a divine item. A divine item, an item gifted by the god. The thief that was the owner of the sound of the wind, ancient power, had died while running away with a divine item. That was how precious they were. The reason that the secret organization arm was able to kill the strong blue wolf tribe was because they had a divine item. That was why Cal was excited as he asked, "Where is the condemnation of the Son located? I will retrieve it." However, Jack shook his head with a bitter expression. "I do not know." Jack had only heard about the existence of divine items while being taught by the Pope the ways of a saint. After that, the Pope responded to Jack's questions of, "Are there divine items?" With divine items? Something like that does not exist. The fake holy maiden, Hannah, who had been quietly listening to Jack, let out a scoff. The Pope said that it does not exist. That means that it is definitely somewhere. That greedy old man probably hid it somewhere safe. Jack said something interesting at that moment. However, the Pope would not have been able to use the divine item even if he knew where it was located. Why is that? The popes have not directly been appointed by the sun god since the Pope from about 500 years ago. The rest since then were all selected in a meeting by the church's leaders. Hannah put on another smirk. "Meeting of leaders, my ass." It was more of an ugly fight for power. Cal listened to the crazy priestess, the saint, and the fake holy maiden chat for a while before asking Jack a question. What kind of divine item is the condemnation of the Son? Cal set a goal for this trip after hearing Jack's response. He decided to steal it if he got lucky enough to find it. But I don't really have a way to find it. There was no way Cal would know the location when neither the saint nor the holy maiden knew about it. That was why he added the part about luck. Tap, Cal turned his head toward the hand on his shoulder. "Let's go in." It was the Crown Prince. Cal, the rest of the Roan Kingdom's investigation team, and the Empire's administrators all responded to Alberu. Cal, Choi Han, Iruhaben, and the vice-captain all followed behind Alberu as they headed into the Vatican. There was still evidence of the explosion in the plaza outside the Vatican. Part of the Vatican itself was still destroyed from the magic bomb as well. There was a barricade along the site of the incident, along with a large group of people gathered in the plaza just outside the barricade. Catch those terrible twins who destroyed the church and killed our citizens. The Church of the Sun God is disbanded. A church that seeks power is no longer a church. Many different voices could be heard. Catch and kill those devils who killed the Pope Nim. The Empire does not need the Sun God. The Church of the Sun God that kills people be gone. The Empire had revealed many things about the Church of the Sun God that they had discovered during their terror investigation. As a result, the Vatican was empty because the priests, as well as anybody else that was involved with the Vatican, were all currently under investigation. The Empire is quite an interesting place. Cal could tell that the Empire's royal family was letting these people do this on purpose. There were bound to be moles from the crown among those people as well. However, Cal did not care about it. Human, let's find a lot of treasures. Cal slightly nodded his head at Rayon's voice. He then lifted his head up. He could see the alchemist's bell tower, which was visible from all locations within the Empire. He could see the tall tower that looked as if it could stab the sun. In contrast, the Vatican was quiet and destroyed. Ah, so thrilling. That was what the fake Holy Maiden, Hannah, had said. I told Arm about the secret room. It is a location that only the Pope and the leaders know about. A lot of the Vatican's treasures are located there. However, I did not tell them about the secret table inside of the secret room. That is the path to the real treasure. Cal was more serious than ever before. The path to the treasure. He needed to be focused. Cal had already chatted about things with Alberu, Cal Henitus. Let's proceed with the plan on the last day of the investigation. Is it because the celebration is the next day? Yes. We will swipe it when the Empire is busy with the preparations. Sounds great. Then I guess I need to act like a dedicated investigator until then. Cal's solemn expression as he finished recalling the conversation made the Empire's investigation squad members stiffen up. Rustle. Cal stepped on some rocks that had fallen off the broken buildings as he slowly entered the Vatican. We just need to investigate as we want. The Empire's administrator lightly nodded his head at Alberu's question. Yes, sir. However, we ask that you let us know of the location in advance and have one of us with you at all times. Is that so? Whatever. We'll do as you have asked. The administrator let out a sigh of relief after seeing Alberu not getting upset. Alberu divided up the investigation squad and gave some orders. These 5 people, including myself, will investigate the central building, the eastern annex, the western administrative offices. Alberu distributed the team and pointed to the last building as he looked toward Cal. Young Master Cal Henitus, you and Inspector Ben will investigate the rear garden and the tower with the spire behind it. Cal and Ben made eye contact. Ben was one of Alberu's secretaries who had been named as an inspector based on his investigation abilities. He was, naturally, a disguised dark elf. Cal started to speak. I do not need any other guards as I have 3 of my knights with me, Your Highness. Alberu nodded his head as if that was not an issue. Do as you like. You, Ben, and an administrator from the Empire. 3 knights should be fine for the 3 of you. Alberu gave the order for all of them to start moving. Cal put Ben in front of him and slowly headed to the garden. There is nothing in the garden. The fake Holy Maiden, Hannah, had said that there was nothing of value in the garden. Cal could see the Empire's administrator smiling awkwardly as soon as they entered the garden. It is pretty ugly, isn't it? The administrator could see the flowers that were trampled. There were also blood stains, making it look more like a battlefield rather than a garden. The administrator could not help but smile awkwardly to show them such a terrible sight. Not at all. Cal started to speak to the administrator. It just makes me sad to think about that terrible moment. The administrator recalled that this young master in front of him was the one who put himself in harm's way in order to defend his kingdom. He leaned his ear toward the just noble's words. I pray that we can find the perpetrators in order to console the souls of the dead as well as the hearts of those they left behind. Those are very touching words. Cal acted like a just noble as he walked through the garden. He could see the tower behind the garden. There was a very small window at the top of it. The administrator started to speak once he noticed that Cal's gaze was on the tower. It is said that there was a heretic when the Vatican was created hundreds of years ago. They supposedly locked the heretic up at the top of the tower. Cal had heard this from Jack as well. It is a building with a staircase leading up to the top and nothing else. It is a pretty useless building. It has not been used for a couple 100 years. That was what Hannah had said as well. But what is going on? Boom, boom. His heart was beating wildly. It had started from the moment he looked at the tower. Cal kept his gaze on the tower as he started to speak. Ben, let us split up and look. I will go toward the tower. Yes, sir, I understand. The Empire's administrator retreated to the entrance of the garden and started to speak. Please take your time. I will be right here. It meant that he would be watching them. Cal did not say anything as he started to walk toward the tower. What is going on, Cal Nim? Choi Han was following behind Cal. Hilsman was with Ben while Iruhaben was with the Empire's administrator. Cal casually responded to Choi Han's question. Nothing, my heart is just beating. Choi Han seemed to be confused. It was at that moment. It was as Cal got closer to the tower. The moment that he could see the only door into this 15-story tower that looked cold and cruel. Choi Han saw it. Cal Nim, in your hand, he could not say the rest as he looked around. He then quickly moved to Cal's side in order to block the view of the Empire's administrator. Choi Han then pointed to Cal's right hand. Swoosh, a small gust of wind was forming on Cal's right hand. Ha ha ha, low laughter echoed in the area. The quiet laughter was filled with both admiration and shock. It was Cal. Cal could not prevent himself from laughing. Boom, boom, boom. His heart was beating wildly. His feet felt lighter as well. It was the sound of the wind. The sound of the wind was roaring in his mind more than ever before. Cal recalled the information about the former owner of this power, the greatest thief who had stolen a divine item. She was as bold as she was fast. Swoosh, the gust of wind on his hand kept wanting to fly toward the tower. Human, what is going on? Why are you causing the wind? Are you trying to destroy the tower with the whirlwind? Rayon's serious voice echoed in his mind. Don't do that. I saw your hands shaking last time. The great and mighty Rayon Meru can easily destroy a tower like that if you want. I can destroy the palace as well. Cal quietly responded back. We can't destroy it. Excuse me? You are not going to destroy it. Choi Han asked with confusion while Rayon responded with an oddly disappointed tone. Cal brushed his face with his left hand. He recalled the information Jack and Hannah had told him about the tower. Although they call her a heretic, the leaders get to know the truth. The woman who was imprisoned in the tower was the last real holy maiden. You're right. She supposedly tried to reveal the church's wrongdoings, but she failed and ended up having to live the terrible life of being imprisoned in the tower forever. The Pope tried to brainwash us from an early age that acting like that holy maiden would only lead to a pitiful life. The tower where the last real holy maiden lived. She had looked down at the church from the small window at the top of the tallest tower in the Vatican. Cal remembered the question he had asked Jack, as well as Jack's response. What kind of divine item is the condemnation of the sun? Jack had an awkward smile as he responded back. It is the sun's judgment. Although it is hard to believe, he shook his head as he continued to speak. It is supposed to prevent the night. A white night. It is said to bring forth a bright night, the condemnation of the sun, an item that destroys the darkness. It was a divine item that only the Church of the Sun God could own. Cal looked toward the tower again. It is here. The thief who owned the sound of the wind was quietly reaching out to him. It is here. The divine item is here. Cal started to speak. Choi Han. Yes, sir. We will secretly leave the palace tonight. Excuse me? Cal didn't even look toward the shocked Choi Han as he started to speak to Rayon. Rayon? What is it, human? Show the assassin in my room some illusions tonight. Make him think that I am peacefully sleeping in the room. He is pretty strong, so I will need to create a magic circle with a magic stone. Use it. Cal didn't care. Why would he care about a magic stone when they were going to find a divine item? Cal started to speak. Tonight, we will loot this tower tonight. Translator's note 1. I changed God's item to divine item. Chapter 157. Rolling in by the vine 4. Loot the tower. Take everything from the tower. Choi Han was used to Cal's way of speaking by now. Although he is phrasing it like that, I'm sure he'll use it for good again. Everything Cal had done until now was used to help others or for something positive. Choi Han trusted Cal. That was why he responded back with no issue. I will prepare for it. Good. We are going to wear the fake outfits? Choi Han flinched after hearing that they were going to wear the fake secret organization outfit, but quietly nodded his head. Cal started to think about the Church of the Sun God and the Vatican. The Church of the Sun God had existed as a religious body in the continent for a long time. It became a powerful church after the Vatican was created in the Magoru Empire a couple hundred years ago, and has strengthened its influence as the official religion of the empire for the past 150 years. This tower was supposedly built when the Vatican was created. Cal touched the surface of the tower. It was currently the middle of a winter night. The tower's walls were cold. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of the wind was running wild. Human, why are you smiling in such a scary manner? Rayon's voice echoed in his head. Cal ignored Rayon completely as he started to speak. It was a quiet voice. It's new. Choi Han responded to him. The Empire seems to have put it up recently. Yes, they probably destroyed the original lock and replaced it since there was nothing. Cal pointed to the new lock. Break it? A small black aura silently destroyed the lock. The door to the top of the tower opened without a sound. Rayon flew in through the gap. There are no people or magic devices here. Human, this really was thrown to the side. Cal nodded his head at Rayon's report and walked in through the door. The 15th floor. The small window was the only window on this floor. Pat. A small orb of light appeared in front of Cal. Choi-hen closed the door, leaving just a small gap, and started to speak. "I will be right here." Cal nodded his head and slowly started to speak. Iruhaben should be sleeping peacefully in Cal's bed with his hair changed to match Cal's red hair. The spy in Cal's bedroom should be looking at the real Hilsman guarding the door to Cal's bedroom and the fake Choi-hen guarding on the inside. They would think that Iruhaben switched shifts and went to his room to sleep. "Human, let's hurry up." Cal did not respond to Rayon's urging and slowly walked up. Tap, tap, his footsteps echoed as he followed the circular staircase up to the top. All of the guards are gathered by the Eastern Annex. The highest level of security started from the Eastern Annex, then the Western administrative offices, and finally the central building. The garden didn't even have any guards. Cal had floated in the air for a long time to determine the patrol paths, and learned that there was approximately an hour gap between when the guards would come to the garden. They're pretty much advertising that the Eastern Annex has a secret room. Cal found that to be stupid. He recalled what the Sword Master Hannah had said. The Church's patrols and the Empire's current patrol patterns are probably different, but I'll tell you anyways since it may help. The fake Holy Maiden explained the patrol patterns. They barely go to the garden. Ah, Hannah. But didn't the Pope go to the garden a lot? Hannah scoffed and added on, he did. That sleepless old bastard. He always walked around the garden. He wouldn't even let others come to the garden when he was there. Funny bastard. Is the garden his private area? Cal could finally understand the Pope's actions. The Pope seems to have known about this tower. He seemed to have known that a divine item was here. Although I don't know why he didn't give the divine item to the saint, even if he was just a half-saint. Jack should have been able to use the divine item. Then the believers would have become even more faithful. Of course, the Pope may have thought it would be difficult to control the saint if he had a divine item. That may be why he hid the existence of the divine item. Human, why are you continuously smiling as you walk up? Hurry up so we can get our things. Cal started to walk a little faster. Swoosh, the sound of the wind surrounded Cal's feet. He was able to climb up quickly without much effort. Cal finally arrived at the 15th floor. Human, I will break the lock. Rayon must have determined it was okay not to be quiet as he shouted out loud. The black dragon broke the new lock on the small and old iron door and pushed the door to the side. Human, let's crawl. The door was only half of Cal's height. Rayon folded his wings and slowly crawled in. He then pushed his head back out. Human, why are you not coming in? Heh. Cal let out a sigh as he crawled into the door, the 15th floor. Cal stood up as soon as he entered the narrow room. Human, it's so barren. There really was nothing in here. An old metal bed, a table that seems like it will break any moment, and a metal chair. Those were the only things in the room. Human, I think I understand why the Empire just left it alone. There really was nothing in here. It just seemed like a forgotten prison. Rayon recalled the dark cave he had been chained in. It was as gloomy as that cave. Human, there is a weird, violent, and scary aura in here. The black dragon felt something odd. Cal was silent at that moment. An interesting noise reached Rayon's ear. Swoosh, it was the wind. Rayon turned his head. He could not say anything. Tap, 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 the uneven slates on the prison's floor. Cal Henetus was crouched over and tapping on the slate. Rayon just continued to watch. Eventually, the black dragon made eye contact with the human. The human started to speak. It is right here. Whirlwinds were roaring by Cal's side. Clunk. Clunk. The old metal bed and chair started to clunk. The prison was quiet other than the noise of the roaring whirlwinds. Rayon had never seen this power working in such a manner. Cal had used the sound of the wind as soon as he entered the prison. He then felt the emotions stored within the ancient power. This was the first time he had felt it. Cheering. The sound of the wind was cheering. Cal looked toward Rayon. The black dragon nodded his head before using magic to lift up the slate Cal was tapping on. The slate that had been there for hundreds of years took a bit of effort to move. Swoosh, the wind gathered on its own and brushed away the dirt once the slate was removed. Found it. There was a black box. It was a box with a lock that was so old that the right key probably wouldn't even open it. It was a small box. Cal quickly brushed off the dirt on top of the box. Boom, boom, boom. He could feel his heart going wild as he brushed the dirt off. The condemnation of the sun, it was now in his hands. This would make it possible to create a mess in the Empire earlier than he planned. Rayon, who had been approaching Cal, could not get any closer due to the whirlwinds and destroyed the lock from a distance. Crack. The lock broke easily. Cal slowly opened the box. Screech, clunk. The inside of the box was revealed for the first time in hundreds of years. What the? Cal was confused. Swoosh, the whirlwinds slowly disappeared as if they could finally relax. Rayon was then able to stick to Cal to see inside the box. Human, this is very scary and violent. Cal could not respond to Rayon's statement. He slowly took the item out of the box. It was a book. The white book seemed to be in perfect condition. Cal read the title. Scary. This did not seem to be the condemnation of the sun. It was at that moment. Are you trying to sacrifice yourself? He could hear the voice of the super rock. Cal flinched and looked toward Rayon. Rayon, is there a curse on this book? No, it just has a violent and scary aura. Cal turned stoic. Rayon had been saying it was violent and scary since earlier. Was it because of this book? Based on what the super rock was saying, it really did seem to be scary. Cal slowly put the book down. Human, isn't it ours? No, this is a bit. Swoosh, a wind suddenly gushed. Cal could feel the sound of the wind's silent anger through the wind. Cal picked up the white book again. The wind stopped. It is definitely a divine item. It is also not cursed. Cal felt odd while looking at the book. Why is it in the Rhone language? The words Cal could see were in the Rhone language. Rayon, the title is in the Rhone language, right? Human, isn't it a runic language? What? Rayon was saying the title was runic to him. Cal's expression changed. He opened the book without any hesitation. He flipped to the first page. He turned to the next page. Rayon, who was stretching his neck up to see the book, continued to tilt his head in confusion. It was weird. He then heard Cal's voice. Rayon. What is it, human? Miss Cage is part of the Church of Death, right? The crazy priestess Cage. Rayon looked toward Cal with an odd expression. Yes. It has been a while since they had a saint or a holy maiden, right? Yes. Rayon's eyes seemed to be asking why Cal was asking such obvious questions, but Cal silently continued to turn the pages until he returned to the front. He could see the name of the author. This. Cal was flabbergasted. I think this is a divine item of the god of death. It was not surprising that he found a divine item. However, he was confused. Why is this over here? Why was a divine item of the god of death in the prison of the sun god's final holy maiden? Cal could not put the pieces of the puzzle together. Cal put the white book back in the box. He then pulled the box out of the dirt. And what is this? Underneath the box was a book covered on both sides by an iron plate. Cal picked up the iron plates and the book in shock. Thud. The book fell out of the iron plates and landed on the ground. The old book opened as it hit the ground. There were just a few lines of text on the book after the effects of time. Human, this is in the Empire's language? The words were in the Empire's language. Cal, who had learned the basics of the Empire's language for this trip, could read a few of the words. It was swear words. Cal had memorized all of the swear words. It was swear words. The majority of the words that were still legible were mainly swear words. Human, doesn't this seem like the owner of this room wrote this? Cal carefully opened the book's first page. He could see the Empire's language on the first page of the diary. Rayon, read it for me. All right. The great Rayon knows all of the continent's languages. Rayon started to read the legible text on the page. Pope, you bastard who deserves to die a miserable death, you imprison me like this. You stupid bastard who will never receive even the slightly sliver of a blessing from the sun god. Cal looked toward Rayon. Rayon looked back with a serious expression. That is what it says. Sure. Cal listened closely to Rayon's continued translation. You imprison this precious person in this tiny prison. 100, no, 1,000 days of suffering is not enough for you. I will never forgive you. Evil bastards. I was the idiot for trusting you, shitheads. Yes, anybody would get angry if they were imprisoned. Cal understood the Holy Maiden's feelings. This diary was definitely the Holy Maiden's diary. Rayon turned the page and continued to translate. You imprisoned me with the god of death's divine item to suppress my power. Just watch. I will leave this underneath the divine item so that someone in the future will see it. Hum. Cal, who had been blankly listening to the swearing, and Rayon, who had been realistically reciting the swears, looked toward each other. Rayon pointed to the white book. Human, this, yes. Just read on. All right. Rayon smiled at Cal's cheery disposition and continued to read. He then flinched. Stupid idiots, you don't even know where the sun god's divine item is located. You dare to put me, the one aiming to become royalty, in this human. This is weird. Let's keep reading. All right. Rayon looked at the diary that was in the Empire's language. Rayon read it all for Cal. He then continued to read. You stole the god of death's divine item because you are scared of the church of the god of death. How could that be the will of the just sun god? You bastards deserve to die miserable deaths. The puzzle was slowly coming together for Cal. The last holy maiden was the heir to the throne. The second prince was probably the one with the most influence after her. The second prince and the pope had conspired to imprison the holy maiden in here. They were also the ones to put their enemy, the god of death's divine item, in here. That was why the pope liked to walk here a lot. The pope did not walk here because of the condemnation of the sun. It was because of this bomb that needed to be kept even a bigger secret. It was something only he could know about. I guess it makes sense. The Church of the Sun God is one of the most famous in the continent. The Church of the God of Death is not as strong in influence. However, death was stronger than the sun. It made sense why they would be wary of them. At that moment, Rayon's continued translation reached Cal's ear. Stupid idiots. You burned my palace once you imprisoned me. You then called me crazy and a heretic for laughing. Why do you think I laughed? Gasp. Rayon gasped as he continued to speak. Stupid idiots. You didn't even know the condemnation of the sun was in there. What? The divine item that you've been looking for is underneath that burnt palace. Cal looked toward Rayon, who read one more thing in the diary. Ah, so funny. It really is funny. Cal looked toward Rayon, who looked back at the smiling Cal and asked, Human, are we looting the palace as well? Chapter 158. Rolling in by the Vine 5, Rayon could see Cal's stiff expression. Rayon. The low voice made Rayon realize that his thought might be going too wild. Rayon started to speak with a stiff expression as well. Yes. Rayon had a perfect grasp of Cal's strength. The black dragon's front paw patted on Cal's leg. Human, I said something too wild. Not only is your body weak, your influence is also much less than the Empire's royal family. So just sit back, I will loot the palace for you. What are you talking about? Contrary to Rayon, who had been serious about looting the palace for Cal started to pack the box and diary up as he shared his new plan. Let's look for it starting tomorrow. Human, that is more like you. The Grand Palace is just dust compared to a great and mighty dragon. Do not worry. I will destroy anything in our way. Cal ignored the vicious ramblings of a 5-year-old as he headed to the only window on the floor. He stopped in front of the window. He had not considered breaking in through this window. The window was only about as wide as Cal's face. There were also iron bars, making it difficult to see outside. However, the Vatican was completely visible past this window. You could even see the alchemist's bell tower and the Grand Palace behind the Vatican as well. Rayon moved over to Cal, who was looking out the window. Cal touched the bars as he started to speak. The Holy Maiden must have had it hard. She had to spend her life in this prison. Cal's emotional statement made Rayon recall his years in the cave. Rayon looked toward Cal with an emotional gaze. This human really is a good person. He knows how to have this kind of thought as well. Rayon. Yes, good human. Let's resolve this Holy Maiden's grudges. Yes, human, let's do it. Cal smiled while looking at Rayon energetically nod his head. It was a very sly smile. Are you done? Cal nodded his head at Choi Han's question and handed him a bottle. Isn't this dead mana? It was a bottle of dead mana. It would kill anybody who drank it. Cal was always carrying this around while saying, just in case. Cal pointed outside the tower and started to speak. Pull up all the grass in the garden and put 1 or 2 drops of dead mana in the dirt. It would be bad if it gets polluted. Choi Han found it difficult to wrap his head around the sudden command. but he had a good idea about what Cal was trying to do. "Calnim, do I just need to leave evidence of arm being here? He really is smart." Although Choi Han acted aloof every so often, Cal knew that he was a smart person. "Yes, I'll also tell you the location of a fake alchemist in the slums, so go find him. He'll understand if you say that the priest sent you." "What do I need to tell him to do?" "Tell him to spread a rumor." "What rumor?" Cal was thinking about preparing to fight against the Empire after the war against the Northern Alliance. That was why he had expected to go up against the Empire at least 2 years later. But things are different now. Things would change if he could get his hands on the divine item of the Church of the Sun God. People tend to believe when they see miracles happen. We will shake the Empire. He needed to spread the seeds in the Empire. Cal gave an order to Choi Han, who was looking at him. The Empire lost the person who could deliver the word of the Lord. An evil power will bring forth the eternal night. The proof of this has appeared close to the tower where the heretic was trapped. He would share this rumor with the children of the slums, and they would slowly spread it throughout the Empire. Crown Prince Albrew did not feel good after hearing some news this morning. He was then curious. That was why he had called Cal Henitus over. Click. The teacup was placed on the table, and Albrew looked toward Cal, who was sitting across from him, and started to speak. "Was it you?" "What are you talking about, Your Highness?" Albrew was certain after seeing Cal eating a cookie with an expression that seemed to be saying, "I know nothing." "It was you." "What was?" "What did you do to the Vatican?" Crunch. Cal started to smile as he bit down on the cookie. One had happened earlier this morning. The Empire sent a message to the Rhone Kingdom's investigation team to halt their investigations for a moment. Albrew recalled the contents of the message. The Empire was openly pressuring a foreign kingdom. That upset him, but more importantly, what mattered was that the Empire seemed to be in such a crisis that it was willing to end their cooperation if needed. He looked toward Cal and started to speak. "The Empire suddenly ordered that we will not be able to investigate for 3 days. "I see. How disappointing." Tap. Tap. Albrew started to speak after tapping on the armrest of his chair a couple of times. "Something must have happened in the Vatican last night, but they do not seem to blame us or suspect us of doing anything. They seemed more like they were preventing us from going to the Vatican to investigate. So did you agree to their terms, Your Highness?" "You think I'm crazy enough to accept it right away? I said it is too much that they are not allowing us to investigate for 3 days when we are only here for a week." Honestly speaking, Albrew did not have any reason to complain. The investigation was not a big deal. It was just a small portion of the reason he came to the Empire. "Your Highness, what if you ask them to reduce the number of administrators observing us in the remaining time in return for not being able to investigate for 3 days? "That is exactly what I asked for." Albrew's frown loosened up a bit. The two of them made eye contact and started to sigh. It would be easier for Cal and the Dark Elves to loot the Vatican if the Empire lessened the number of people observing their movements. Albrew picked his teacup back up and started to speak. "I guess you don't plan on talking." Cal shrugged his shoulders. Normally, Albrew should get angry as the Crown Prince when someone refuses to answer his question like this. However, there was no need to do that. "Your Highness, it will be a benefit for the Rhone Kingdom." Cal Henitus. He never said anything that he did not mean. Although he caused a lot of incidents, he never did anything to harm the Rhone Kingdom. In fact, he has helped the kingdom quite a bit. Cal Henitus was someone who did anything and everything to help and protect the Rhone Kingdom. That was why Albrew let it go without saying anything. He is a trustworthy punk. Trust was slowly developing between the two of them. Albrew looked toward Cal with a slightly more relaxed expression. There was curiosity in his gaze. Cal cautiously called out to the Crown Prince at that moment. "Your Highness." "What is it?" "Then can we relax today?" Albrew instantly started to frown again. "What are you trying to do?" Cal responded back with a bright expression. "Doing some reading and going for a walk." "Who is planning to do that?" Cal pointed to himself. "I am." There was a disguised high-grade dark elf mage in the room. However, Albrew could not hold back. "You're driving me nuts." Cal casually got up, and Albrew waved for him to quickly leave. Cal smiled at the dark elf that was looking at him oddly and headed to the Empire's library to read. However, he could not go alone. Young Master Nim, it will be fine if you follow this knight as a guide. One of the Empire's knights stuck to him. It was the red-haired knight. Yes, it was that cat. Where would you like to go, young Master Nim? The cat knight, who seemed to be in his tweens, asked in a low voice. However, the voice he intentionally lowered to act like a majestic knight was extremely awkward. Please take me to the Empire's library. Foreigners are allowed on the first floor, right? Yes, sir, it is allowed. I will guide you there. The cat knight quickly started to walk. Cal followed a half-step behind the cat while Choi Han and an invisible Rayon followed behind him. Human, he keeps peeking over at you. Right. The cat knight continued to peek at Cal as he guided them to the destination. He was doing it in a way that seemed to be hoping that Cal would catch on. That was why Cal ignored him. Why would I talk to someone who probably came here to kill someone? Cal just focused his gaze on the Empire's library up ahead, which was one of the Magoru Empire's pride and joy. It was a modest yet exquisite appearance that made it look more like an academy than a palace. The thought of the divine item made Cal's footsteps lighter. Then came the hook. Excuse me, young Master Nim? What is it? The cat knight flinched after seeing the gaze of the noble whose hair was a brighter shade of red than his own. However, he carefully asked his question. You have pet cats? Cal felt his heart drop. Why do you think that? The cat knight answered back while looking like an embarrassed little boy. I just smelled cats on you. He looked really pure as he scrunched up his freckled nose. However, the cat knight could see that Cal's expression did not change at all when he looked up. Cal's gaze made him wonder whether he was wrong. Cal started to speak at that moment. Are you sure you aren't the one with a cat? Excuse me? It looks like you are the one with a cat. Slight panic became visible on the pure face. Cal's hand landed on the knight's shoulder at that moment. Swipe, swipe. The knight's shoulders stiffened at Cal's motion. Cal and the cat knight made eye contact. You have some animal fur on your uniform. Is that so? Yes. It looks like you have a red cat that matches your hair, Cal asked with a gentle smile as the knight shook his head. It must be my hair. I do not have any pets. Is that so? Cal could see that the knight turned serious. Yes, sir. I hate animals. He seemed to mean it. Cal did not say anything else as he started to walk again. The cat knight started to describe the things around them once more. Cal heard Rayon's voice in his head. He seemed super excited when he asked if you had pet cats, but he seemed serious when he said that he hates animals. It was very odd. Right, this knight was an odd one. However, Cal reaffirmed his decision when Choi Han whispered in his ear once he left the cat knight outside the library and walked in. Calnim, that knight's strength is too high for him to be someone's guide. Being a knight seems to be a cover. I'll pretend not to know. An assassin's thought process was none of Cal's business, as usual. However, Cal could not help but recall some of the information that Hilsman had brought back about that knight. That knight is originally from the slums. Apparently he grew up with poor parents and many siblings, but his good character made him popular with the people in the slums and the general public. They call him a dragon from the river. The final piece of information kept crossing his mind. The cat knight was 23 years old. Some of his siblings were said to have gone to the alchemy tower 15 years ago. His parents definitely seemed to be human, 15 years ago. The slums. He thought about the alchemist's bell tower. Who did the cat knight come here to kill? Cal did not worry about it too much. Instead, he followed the librarian around the first floor of the library. The librarian seemed happy but shocked. It has been a while since I've seen a foreigner who is interested in the history of the palace. Is that so? I just want to learn more about the long history of the empire. I see. Shouldn't you at least know the history of a place that invited you over? The librarian nodded his head at Cal's response. The librarian liked this young foreigner's attitude. They stopped in front of the public chronology of the empire and explained it to Cal. This is where we have the information on the history of the empire as well as the achievements of past emperors. I see. I will slowly look through them. Yes, sir. Please come to the desk if you need any help. The librarian nodded his head and smiled with satisfaction at the young master, who immediately started to read. I guess he must like the Empire quite a bit to know the Empire's language. That was the reason for the librarian's curiosity. Although the first floor of the library was open to foreigners, all of the books were in the Empire's language. Although they were proclaiming that it was open to foreigners, they were still saying that you can't read anything if you don't learn our language. However, Cal had rayon. Human, information about the Vatican is 3 shelves down from where you are. Cal slowly looked through random books until he got there. Flip, flip. Rayon's clear voice echoed in his mind. There is a palace that was created when the Vatican was being built. Cal covered his mouth with the book as he quietly started to speak. Tell me more. Cal opened the book. There is no information about the burning of a palace since the Vatican was built. However, there is only one palace that was built during that time. They had not seen any area that showed any signs of having been burnt in the past. A garden was created next to that palace. A palace and a garden that was built as the Vatican was created. They are called the Sun Palace and the Sun Garden. The names were said to have been created by the Imperial Prince and the Pope. Flip, flip. Cal quickly turned the pages. Of course, Rayon quickly read through the information. Rayon started to speak to Cal, who had been turning the pages for 3 hours. The early information is all the useful information that is in the book. Plop. Cal closed the book. He then started to speak to Choi Han. Let's go. There was no need to read anymore. The Sun Palace. Cal knew where the Sun Palace was. He also knew the famous Sun Garden next to it. That was the location of the end-of-year celebration. Cal headed out of the library and started to walk. He could soon see the fancy palace and the just-as-beautiful garden next to it. They shined like the sun. Once he got closer to the 2 locations, boom, 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 his heart was beating wildly. And his fingers became itchy. An invisible wind rustled by Cal's side. The last day of the investigation. Alberu spoke to Cal before getting off of the carriage. See you at the celebration afterward. Alberu was planning on acting like a proper crown prince, as he walked around the building with the Empire's administrators in order to give Cal the opening to go into the Eastern Annex. The number of administrators watching them was cut in half. However, they were no longer allowed to investigate the rear garden of the tower with the spire. Alberu suddenly seemed to have realized something. A sword master is supposedly coming to the celebration. The Empire's sword master? Yes, sword master. There was one sword master in the Empire, one in the Karo Kingdom, and one in the north. That was what was known to the public. Cal started to frown. Alberu seemed to understand what was on Cal's mind as he started to speak. You shouldn't need to worry. The Empire probably plans on showing off their might by having the sword master show up to the celebration. He is showing up tomorrow in order to immediately take part in it. We don't need to pay any attention. The existence of a sword master raised a nation's status and increased the morale of the knights. The highest level of the sword. There was a lot of meaning in reaching that level. That was why Alberu started to speak while looking at Cal's stiff expression that seemed to be worrying about the Roan kingdom that did not have any sword masters. Although they are our enemy, there is no need to be afraid of them right now. Your Highness. Yes, Choi Han is a sword master. Do you think that they would be able to tell each other's levels if he goes to the celebration? Alberu's mind blanked out for a moment. Cal then added on. Vice Captain Hilsman is also a highest grade knight. That should be okay, right? Cal felt disappointed at Alberu's blank expression. It looked like only he and Rayon would be able to look for the divine item in the Sun Palace. Should I take Iruheben Nim? I need to tell Rayon to hide his presence as well. Cal looked toward the Crown Prince. Alberu said just one thing. Ho! 3 Cal called out to Alberu after hearing that. Your Highness? Alberu finally started to speak after a while. Crazy bastard. Those words were naturally directed at Cal. He then took a magic bag out of his pocket and almost threw it at Cal. Loot it all. Cal started to smile as he put the magic bag away. A moment later at the Vatican's Eastern Annex. This is also a library. Cal reached his hand out toward the library door. I leave it to you, young Master Nim. The high-grade dark elf mage spoke as Cal opened the library door. The secret room was in here. And the secret table was within that room. The treasure was there. Screech, the library door opened. He heard the voice at that moment. Are you trying to sacrifice yourself? What? It was the scary giant cobblestone, chapter 159. Rolling in by the vine 6. Are you trying to sacrifice yourself to protect it? Cal stopped outside the library door and could not go in. This isn't supposed to be a dangerous place. The library should not be a dangerous place. The Roan Kingdom's investigation team's Ben had no issues investigating here just the other day. Ben had been teamed up with Cal on the first day. He was a dark elf talented in investigations and had reported that the inside of the library, as well as the path to the secret room's entrance, were all safe. Young Master Nim? Ah, let's go in. Cal jumped out of his thoughts at the dark elf's calling and walked into the library. Screech. Choi Han entered at the end and closed the library door. Cal Nim, I will be right here. All right. Choi Han was going to stay in the library just in case something happened. The high-grade dark elf mage gazed toward Choi Han before turning back to look at Cal, who was walking to the innermost area of the library without any caution. The dark elf quickly followed behind him. Young Master Cal. He had asked his leader, Tasha, about Cal Henitus before coming to the Empire. Tasha started to speak with a peculiar expression that he could not tell whether she was laughing or not. Special. He's a special person. It was rare for Tasha to evaluate someone like this. What could be special about this guy? The dark elf suppressed his curiosity and followed behind Cal. He remembered the Crown Prince's message as well. He told us the location of the entrance, but only he knows the way to go in. Listen to everything he says without question. Without question. It was the first time the Crown Prince said something like that as well. The dark elf pushed down his resurfacing curiosity and stopped at the corner of the library section on ancient texts. Cal looked around the ancient text section that only had empty bookshelves. He recalled St. Jack's words. The Pope is the one who has always designated the administrator for the Vatican's library. That person regulates who can and cannot go in the ancient texts corner. First head to the ancient texts corner and look at the bookshelves that are against the wall. Cal headed toward those specific bookshelves. There is a phrase inscribed on the middle shelf of every Vatican bookshelves. Cal could see the phrase. This was something that the believers of the Church of the Sun God chanted every morning. There is one phrase that is written incorrectly. It is only a few words that are different. Cal slowly walked following the wall. The dark elf watched as Cal looked like he was leisurely strolling around the area that Ben had confirmed yesterday. Tap. Tap. His slow footsteps could be heard until... Tap. He suddenly stopped moving. Cal reached his hand out. He recalled Jack's information. The small words on the bookshelf on the farthest corner in this restricted area. You just have to press on those words. His long fingers touched the words one by one. Wake from their dreams. Cal moved his hand away. Click. He could hear gears starting to turn. The door will soon open after that, young Master Nim. A quiet noise similar to leaves rustling in the wind could be heard as the bookshelf slowly descended down. Then a door with a golden sun, the sun god's crest, appeared. Human, I will go in first once you open the door. Cal listened to Rayon's message as he pressed the middle eye of the three-eyed golden sun. A sharp piercing noise could be heard as the door slowly started to open. A long white hallway with a glowing orb appeared. Weak human, I am going in. Carefully follow behind me. Cal stepped onto the hallway. He turned his head backwards to look at the dark elf. Follow me. Do I not need to check the area first, young Master Nim? The dark elf could see Cal Henitus smiling as he stood at the secret entrance that suddenly appeared. Just follow behind me. A dragon that is much better than a high-grade mage is guiding me. Cal did not share that detail as he turned back around and started to walk. The dark elf watched Cal walk away before quickly following behind him with an elemental that was tilting its head in confusion. He had heard that Cal only had a shield-type ancient power. He should be in front as a high-grade mage. Special. He's a special person. Listen to everything he says without question. The dark elf remembered the order he was given and quietly walked into the white hallway without any other questions. He followed behind the young master, who was walking without any concerns, and finally arrived at the room at the end of the white hallway. He then flinched in shock. Cal was the same way. He was so shocked that he could not say anything. Rayon shouted in his mind, "Human, what is this, right?" Its blood, dried bloodstains filled the white area. The cupboards and closets in the circular room were all destroyed, while pieces of broken chairs could be seen everywhere. There were also some black marks visible between them. Something seemed to have been absorbed by the marble floor and walls. Cal turned his gaze toward the dark elf. They both started to speak at the same time. Dead mana. It is dead mana residue? Human, they must have used the dead mana bomb. Rayon's voice also echoed in his mind at that moment. Cal looked toward the dark elf and started to speak. They said a lot of the leaders died. Yes, sir. They said that they died from the terror incident, but it looks like some of them were killed while hiding in here. And the Empire used the dead mana in that situation. The dark elf frowned and responded to Cal's question. I believe that is the case. The dark elf stopped for a moment as he answered, but ended up finishing his sentence. He could see Cal standing there with an odd smile on his face. Cal was feeling a bit surprised. Is my luck really good right now? The evidence is rolling in by the vine. Cal decided that he would definitely reveal this secret room. He recalled a part of the rumor he had sent to the alchemist through Choi Han a few days ago. The Empire lost the person who could deliver the word of the Lord. An evil power will bring forth the eternal night. Cal looked around the secret room that showed the remains of that evil power. He asked Cora, the dark elf, a question. Cora, did the Empire say that they will maintain the Vatican? Yes, sir. Regardless of how low it has fallen, they said they will maintain it as it has historical significance. Cal made up his mind. I'll destroy this library as well when I destroy the alchemist's bell tower. He needed to make this evil evidence reveal itself to the world. Cora, move around without disturbing anything. Yes, sir. Cal gave Cora the order before heading to the marble table at the center of the circular room. The table that remained in place, unlike the broken wooden chairs, was dyed black in multiple locations and showed scratches from being slashed by a sword. Cal leaned down in front of the table. There were many carvings on the circular pillar supporting the table. Young Master Cal, there should be a total of 24 suns with eyes. There were suns on the pillar similar to the door. There are numbers on the suns. Touch the third eye of the sun in order from 1 to 24. Then a phrase will appear. Cal slowly touched the eyes in order. He touched the 24th sun's eye last. It was at that moment. A phrase appeared underneath the 24th sun. Cal could also hear a noise. Click. The noise continued on. Click, click, click. It finally stopped after the 24th click. Cal started to smile as Cora rushed toward him. Young Master Cal, are you okay? Cal raised his head and saw Cora's face. He was slowly going down. The floor around the table was slowly moving down. Cal motioned to Cora, come over here. Cora looked toward Cal, who was moving down with the table, and jumped. Tap, tap. Cora landed on the table with the dark elf's signature nimble movement. Rumble, the ground rumbled as Cal continued to go down. The secret table. The real treasure appears once you get past that path. Boom, the floor did not go down any farther. Cal stopped crouching down and stood up to see a shabby underground area. This underground area could be called a shabby cave. The ceiling was so low that Cal's head could almost touch it, and the walls were not even. Cal's gaze headed toward the items in the cave. There are coffins in there. He could see 10 coffins. The true holy beings who were labeled as heretics are buried there. For hundreds of years, in order to maintain their power as the king of the church, the former popes labeled any and all holy beings as heretics and claimed they were sent to dangerous areas for volunteer work. However, the heretics never returned. They had never been sent to the dangerous areas. They had all been killed. The Pope made Hannah and me live in the cave when he first secretly brought us from the orphanage. He told us to listen to him if we did not want to end up like the others. The young twins were taught next to these coffins that held corpses that were hundreds of years old. Listening to that made Cal understand why the sword master Hannah had such a twisted mindset. Why, young Master Nim, aren't these coffins? Cal could hear Cora's nervous voice. Yes, they are. Cal headed toward the 10th coffin. There is no corpse in the 10th coffin. The Pope told me that it was mine if I went against him. He told Hannah that her brother would end up in the coffin if she rebelled. What a crazy Pope. Anyways, that is the Vatican's most secret location. That is the important part. Yes, that was the important part. Young Master Nim? Cora rushed toward Cal in shock after seeing him open the lid of the 10th coffin. However, Cal had finished opening it before Cora could do anything. Young Master Nim, the Pope's treasures are in the 10th coffin. It was the treasures that he could not reveal to the leaders of the church. Oh, Rayon let out a gasp as Cora responded in shock. My goodness. He could see 5 items wrapped up in either paper or sealed in a glass box. All of them looked precious and beautiful. The dark elf, who knew the identity of one of those items, commented in shock. My goodness, the sun's tear is here. This was a diamond the size of a human fist that had appeared in the Caro Kingdom's secret auction site 50 years ago. It was called the sun's tear because it glowed gold even though it was a diamond. Although they didn't know who had won the auction, it had sold for over 10 billion gallons. That sun's tear was in this coffin. Young Master Nim, this alone will be amazing. I believe the other items will be similar in value if we look into it. Cora could not hide his excitement. He would not be like this if it was just gold or jewels. However, the fact that there were only 5 items made them seem special. There are 10 coffins like this. Cora asked Cal with excitement, Young Master Nim, should we open the other coffins as well? That does not seem to be a good idea. Excuse me? The other coffins all have corpses. Gasp. Cora gasped and stopped walking toward the other coffins. He then quietly started to speak while looking at the other 9 coffins. Then I guess these 5 items must be the treasures. Not entirely. Cal nodded his head in agreement with Cora's statement, but he knew that these coffins were important keys as well. Then what should we do about these coffins? The Saint Nim said that these were the true holy beings who were against the church's wrongdoings. Then, Cora did not think he needed to hear anything else after seeing Cal's bitter expression. Some very wonderful people lie here. Indeed. Let's quietly return as we cannot move them right now. Yes, sir. Cora looked toward the coffins and started to frown. He did not feel good about leaving these coffins in this small and shabby cave. At that moment, there was a hand patting his shoulder. It was Cal. Cora, I feel the same way, but there will be a day that they will be celebrated. Wouldn't the opportunity arise if we reveal the truth about the Empire? We need to focus on our tasks until then. Yes, sir. I understand. Cora took Cal's words to heart as he put the jewels in the magic bag. He really is not an average person. Cora recalled Cal's gaze that was full of certainty as he consoled him. Cal seemed certain that the day would come. Of course, that was Cora's own thoughts. Cal watched Cora pack the treasure away and started to think of a scene that would happen in the future, in the near future. The people in these coffins will become known as the true holy beings in the newly developed Church of the Sun God. Human, let's make sure to save those coffins. A cave is a difficult place to be. Cal did not respond to Rayon's statement. That was his plan anyways. Oh, young Master Cal, how amazing! Haha, thank you very much. You truly are today's star, Your Highness. Alberu laughed at Cal's response and gave him a thumbs up. You are also a star today. Very wonderful. Cal started to laugh as well. The human and the crown prince are both being weird. The invisible Rayon mumbled to himself. Even the dark elf Ben and Vice Captain Hilsman, who came to guard the two, were looking at them with awkward expressions. However, Alberu and Cal did not care. The two of them were chatting through their gazes. We'll make billions if we sell it all. Arm and the Empire will be sick if they find out. I agree. Isn't it great? They had earned over 10 billion gallons so easily. The treasures were currently next to Choi Han in Cal's room. The Crown Prince said that they should leave the treasures to the sword master Choi Han. It would be bad for them to have it on them while they participated in the celebration. Cal agreed with Alberu. He recalled what Iruhaben had said while yawning. The tail has disappeared as well. The Roan Kingdom's envoy would leave tomorrow morning after a short official ceremony. That was why the assassin hiding in Cal's bedroom had left. They might be around the Vatican's tower since they are responsible for doing stealthy things. They might have been called to investigate the dead mana that Cal had Choi hand spread in the rear garden. However, Cal pushed all of these thoughts away. "Young Master Cal, let's go." "Yes, Your Highness." Alberu took the lead, and Cal followed him with a thick smile on his face. He seemed even more excited than when he was laughing with the Crown Prince. Alberu turned his head after feeling a gust of wind coming from behind him. Is the window open?" "Ben, take a look." "Yes, Your Highness. I will close the window right away." Ben closed the two open windows and started to guide them again. Cal followed behind them as Rayon started to speak in his mind. "Human, didn't you cause that wind just now?" The wind that was blowing behind Alberu was Cal's sound of the wind. The sound of the wind and Cal were both excited about finding the divine item. Chapter 160. Rolling in by the Vine 7, the Sun Palace. It was named this way because it supposedly resembled the sun's bright light. Inside the palace at the corner of the banquet hall's first floor, Cal was standing by a table that was full of desserts. "Human, there are so many delicious things. It would be great if our family was here as well. Munch, munch." The sound of Rayon eating echoed in Cal's head. It would be great if Goldie Gramps was here too. Unfortunately, Cal did not bring Choi Han nor Iruhaben with him. Iruhaben said that he was tired and wanted to rest. Choi Han could not come because of the Empire's sword master. Cal's gaze headed toward someone. It was the middle-aged man chatting with Imperial Prince Adin at the middle of the banquet hall. The man known as the Knight of the Sun was at the zenith of the Empire's sword arts. Houghton. He had reached the sword master level approximately 10 years ago, and, although he looked like a middle-aged man, he was actually in his late 60s. Choi Han is stronger than Houghton, but a sword master's sharp intuition may recognize Choi Han's skill level. Even though they were both sword masters, Choi Han was multiple levels higher than Houghton. Choi Han was someone who could even go up against a dragon. Rayon must have noticed that Cal's gaze was on Houghton as he started to speak into Cal's mind again. "That swordsman is slightly stronger than our mage, Rosalind. However, he is very weak compared to my great and mighty self, of course. He is much weaker than our Rayon." Unless Rayon openly used his magic or sent his mana out as he did to Choi Han and Rosalind in the past, Houghton would never notice Rayon's presence. That's that. She is the alchemist's Bell Tower's Vice Tower Master. Many famous individuals showed up for this first celebration since the Empire's war with the Whipper Kingdom. Cal's gaze moved toward Metalona, the Vice Tower Master of the alchemist's Bell Tower. The middle-aged woman in her 50s was standing next to the Imperial Prince while wearing a robe. She had a bright smile on her face and seemed to be enjoying this celebration. Houghton and Metalona. The two people made it difficult for others to approach the Imperial Prince. The two of them are Adin's power. Alberu and a few of the Roan Kingdom's administrators were currently by the Imperial Prince's side. Cal naturally did not want to be with them, and had thus come to this corner as soon as they arrived. "Human, hand me just one more piece of cake underneath the table." Cal casually picked up a plate of strawberry cake and stealthily pushed it underneath the table. Rayon happily grabbed the plate and started to eat. "Yes, eat a lot so that you can work hard." Cal was filling Rayon up. He was going to put Rayon to work soon in order to find the sun god's divine item. He looked around. The Sun Palace had a total of 3 stories, with a wide opening up to the second floor. There was a terrace on the second floor. The third floor was supposed to have an area for VIP to discuss with each other. They said that they are not opening the third floor today. Cal's gaze headed toward the knights who were stationed around the first floor. There were knights in armor standing at the eastern and western entrances. There were also some knights in regular clothes within the hall as well. The Roan Kingdom's knights were stationed to one side as well. Although they seemed relaxed, they still gave off an aura of strength. "That guy is here too." It was the red-haired cat knight. He was also by the northern wall and was glaring in the Imperial Prince's direction. He had a fierce gaze that seemed to be saying that he would prevent any danger from happening to the Imperial Prince. Cal turned his gaze away from the cat knight, whose gaze was sharper than the other knights. I guess we should start going to steal, no, to pick it up. The condemnation of the sun that should be in the sun garden. Cal slowly started to walk away from the dessert table. He was heading for the second floor while slowly looking around and acting casually. "Ah, young Master Cal?" Then he heard a voice calling out for him. Cal made eye contact with the Imperial Prince Adin, who was smiling at him. Damn it. Cal wanted to swear out loud. However, he put on a gentle smile and walked over to the Imperial Prince and the Crown Prince. The Imperial Prince asked as soon as Cal arrived by their sides. "Young Master Cal, how was your time in the Empire?" "I am happy to have been able to spend some quality time in the Empire." The Rhone Kingdom's investigation team was unable to gain anything from the trip. But seeing that Cal was still saying that he had spent some quality time in the Empire, made the Imperial Prince look toward him with pity, before introducing him to the Sword Master Houghton. "Duke Houghton, young Master Cal is the Rhone Kingdom's hero." "Ah, this young master must be the noble who prevented the terror incident." The Sword Master, Duke Houghton, looked toward Cal with a gentle smile. Cal lightly bowed his head. Alberu patted him on the shoulder as he did that. He is someone who understands the mentality of the Rhone Kingdom. Imperial Prince Adin played along. "I'm sure that he will become a great individual." The Rhone Kingdom's envoy agreed as well, saying that Cal was a rare person with a proper demeanor and mindset. Cal just smiled while listening to people say all sorts of incorrect things about him. At that moment, he heard Rayon's voice. "They're wrong. The weak human is weak, but he is already a great individual. I have approved of him." Egu, Cal almost sighed after hearing what Rayon had to say, but managed to hold himself back. He made eye contact with someone at that moment. The Cat Knight. The Cat Knight was looking his way with a piercing gaze. Cal just ignored it and turned away only to make eye contact with Vice Tower Master Meadalona. She had a gentle smile on her face, and Cal responded with a modest smile as well. Harmony. That was the best word to describe the discussion between the Empire and the Rhone Kingdom's people. The leaders who were around Cal right now, as well as the variety of people around the banquet hall, were all enjoying the end-of-year celebration in peace. However, Cal knew the truth about these people. Duke Houghton, who was smiling at him, sold slaves to Vice Tower Master Meadalona to experiment on inside of the Alchemist's Bell Tower. I pray that you don't lose that mindset and continue on to become a great noble. Yes, sir. I will definitely become such a person. The Magoru Empire's Duke Houghton and Cal Henetus, the Rhone Kingdom's young noble. Their conversation made the atmosphere in the banquet hall even brighter. However, Duke Houghton noticed that Cal's expression did not seem to be so good. "I hope I didn't say anything that places a burden on you. You don't look so good." Cal responded to the concern with a bitter smile. "I have fallen a bit ill after giving it my all to investigate the last few days." "Oh no." The Vice Tower Master sounded concerned. Cal smiled as if he was sorry to say such a thing in this type of environment. "I apologize. We're all supposed to be enjoying ourselves right now. My body has always been on the weaker side, and I had high expectations about settling the Rhone Kingdom's grudges with this trip, that I was terrible at hiding my emotions." "No, not at all. Duke Houghton tried to console this just noble. We will one day uncover the truth and catch the criminals." "Isn't that right, Your Imperial Highness?" "Of course, we must. But young Master Cal, you have a weak body." Cal nodded his head at Adin's question. "Yes, Your Highness, I also needed time to recover after the capital's terror incident. Our young Master Cal has a weak body. It is very sad." Alberu played along with Cal properly. Adin put on an odd expression before gently starting to speak. "I can't keep a sick person for too long. Please enjoy the celebration. Chat with some of our young nobles as well. Thank you very much. I am honored to have had some of your time." Cal pretended to be a respectful noble until the end as he started to walk away. This is so tiring. He felt annoyed and tired after that interaction. He just wanted to go home and roll around on his bed. However, Cal forced himself to chat with some of the Empire's young nobles before walking up to the second-floor terrace when everybody else seemed to be enjoying themselves. There were many terraces on the second floor. Cal opened the door to the terrace in the farthest corner. Click. He quickly walked in and locked the door. I can finally breathe. The chilly winter breeze rushed by Cal's face. He could see the sun garden as well. The sun garden was famous for shining brightly even at night time. However, the lights were off because they had just finished a war. Despite that, there were still a few magic spotlights around the fountains in order to celebrate the end of year. Shall I go? Cal did some light stretches in order to ready himself. It was at that moment. Knock, knock. Someone knocked on the terrace door. Cal opened up the curtains covering the door before pushing the door open. Vice Captain. Young Master Nim, Cal gave an order to Hilsman, who came to the promised location as discussed. Guard properly. Yes, sir. You can leave it to me. Good. Cal looked around after hearing Hilsman's energetic response. There were not that many people up at the terrace as it was still the beginning of the evening. Swoosh, a small wind was created. Hilsman covered the terrace door with the curtain and stood like a statue outside as he looked around. Tap. Cal smiled at Hilsman after easily jumping onto the ledge. I'll be back. Swoosh, Cal flew away from the terrace using the sound of the wind. He soon appeared at a dark area of the sun garden. Human, there are no guards nearby. Cal brushed the leaves off of his clothes as he listened to Rayon's report about the patrol. He took off the cumbersome brooch and handkerchief before shoving them into his pocket. A streak of wind roared on top of Cal's palm. He started to walk in the direction of the wind. Although he was walking leisurely like a noble on a stroll, his steps were stealthy. Cal recalled the information in the diary. There was more to the diary than what Rayon had originally read. However, unfortunately, there was a person who could recognize divine items even without having any divine powers. The thief. The former owner of the Sound of the Wind could do it. I didn't expect the ancient power to carry on the owner's abilities. Cal continued to walk while following the Sound of the Wind's guidance. The Sun Garden. Cal quickly walked through this wide maze-like garden. Leaves rustled as he quickly walked past them. At that moment, he heard Rayon's voice. Human, is that the right way? Cal stopped walking. Boom, boom, boom. His beating heart let him know that he had arrived at his destination. Human. Why are you heading toward that trash can? Cal let out a quiet laugh. This trash can in the corner of the garden looked amazing, but in the end, it was just a receptacle for trash. He needed to get to the ground underneath the trash can. This is driving me nuts. Cal started to speak. Is there anybody around? No. Cal pulled up his sleeves and pushed the trash can that was half his size to the side. He then took out a small hoe from his magic bag. Clang, clang, clang. The hoe started to dig into the frozen ground. Cal stepped back after digging for a bit, and Rayon blew a light gust of wind to reveal the contents. Human, I don't see anything. Continue. Rayon continued to dig until the ditch was about Cal's height. Is it really in here? Continue. Rayon did not say what he planned to say after hearing Cal's short response. Cal's clothes were slightly flapping in the wind. The sound of the wind was cheering. Cal stared at the ditch that was slowly getting deeper. Click. A different noise could be heard. Cal reached his hand out and Rayon used magic to lift the dirt-covered item from the ground. Cal took his handkerchief out of his pocket in order to clean the item. Human, there is a scary aura coming from this item. It is hot. Cal did not hide his smile. A small, compact hand mirror revealed itself in his hand. He opened the lid. It's cracked. He saw that the mirror was cracked. There was no way anybody would think that this was a divine item, especially the condemnation of the sun. The item in front of him did not match the scary name. Ah, how entertaining. Cal put the compact mirror in his inner chest pocket. Let's go. All right, human. By the way, Cal, who was trying to quickly return to the terrace, tried to not pay much attention to what Rayon was saying. The book from a few days ago is even more evil and scary than this compact mirror. However, he could not do so. It was something from the mouth of a dragon. He was still a dragon, even if he was only 5 years old. Cal felt as light as a feather after earning over 10 billion gallons and 2 divine items. Human, are you happy? Of course. Cal happily headed back toward the terrace. He could see the Sun Palace in front of him. He then started to panic. Hilsman? Why, young Master Nim? Hilsman was rushing toward Cal. What is wrong with you? You must run away right now. What? What is he talking about? Why are people coming out of the Sun Palace right now? Cal could see knights, soldiers, and nobles rushing out of the entrance of the Sun Palace in the distance. Pat, pat. The magic lights around the garden started to turn on. Cal stopped heading toward the terrace and instead moved toward a dark area in the garden. He looked toward Hilsman in the dark, and the vice-captain started to speak after calming down a bit. However, the words coming out of his mouth were shocking. There was someone who tried to assassinate the vice-tower master of the alchemist's bell tower just now. What in the world? There was shock on Cal's face. The assassin was one of the Empire's knights, but he only managed to injure the vice-tower master before running away. No way, Cal started to speak. Did he have red hair? How did you know? You're right. He was attacked by the alchemists and the knights, but still managed to escape. They are currently searching for him. I believe that they will catch him soon because he is injured. Oh, goodness. Cal couldn't believe it. Young Master Nim, I was thinking that our story could be that you were resting in the terrace because you are ill, and that I jumped off the terrace and carried you to the garden when the incident happened. Hilsman spoke calmly. Young Master Nim, don't you think that it is a good story? Please get on my back. I think it will be fine if we manage to get to His Highness, the Crown Prince. Let's go for now. Cal decided he should get out of this area first. It was at that moment, Ruusel, there was the sound of rustling leaves and something fell from the tree. Ugh. A small animal seemed to have fallen while jumping through the trees. The animal groaned and tried to get back up to run. Cal started to speak. Oh, what the Hilsman? Yes, sir. Catch it? Excuse me. Cal looked toward the red cat that was bleeding in multiple locations. How could something like this happen? Human, it is the cat, I know. Cal started to speak as Hilsman awkwardly approached the cat and the cat growled while trying to escape. He made eye contact with the cat. Are you also trying to destroy alchemy? Also, that word made the cat flinch. Cal started to think at that moment. They all just keep rolling over on their own. The existences that would help him destroy the Empire and alchemy were rolling into his hands on their own.